Welcome, everyone, to the FATED ARPG podcast, episode number 127. It's been a couple of weeks since our last episode, because we did our last episode before the Badger Private League event in Path of Exile, and then there was the Gauntlet, and there was other events, and before we knew it, we haven't done a podcast in a month. So today, we're doing a little bit of a different thing. We're going to be talking about a new game coming out with its full release version 1.0 in a couple of days. The game is called Last Epoch, and we got experts to talk about it. Before we go into it, of course, I want to thank all the people who renew their subscriptions and who purchase paid subscriptions, especially, obviously, the Patreon. Everyone who does support financially gets a shout out on the end screen. And without further ado, here is our co-host, Baylor Mage. Baylor. I always say Baylor, and now I baited myself by saying Baylor for the first time.
Right, it's fine.
Yeah, I know, but most people say Baylor, including yourself, right?
I say both.
You say both. Okay, never mind. Let's get our guests in before we do our intros this time, so that they can join. We got POG guests, people who are podcast experienced. Welcome with us, PerryThePig and the one and only Dreadful. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Perry?
Good so far. It's been a good day. It's about 7 p.m. for me, about 6 p.m. for me. Sounds like we have people all over the world. It's kind of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's just 15 minutes past midnight here. I think Balor just got up. It looks bright and sunny.
But it is early. It's 9 a.m.
Nice. So, yeah, before we get into the big LE thing, what's the last thing that you did in Path of Exile, Balor?
40-40 challenges. I made my final build, which was just a self-chill explosive trap trickster, so that it could be like very, very, very zoomy and do all the bossing content that it needed to do. And then got all my challenges so that I could have a purple health bar, because in my opinion, a purple health bar is mandatory. Basically, if you don't get a purple health bar, you might as well have not played this league.
I am so out of the loop. What does a purple health bar mean?
Oh, the 38 challenges for PoE this league is an MTX that makes your entire health globe purple, and it looks really cool.
That's so good. What a perfect reward. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what's the last thing that you did in Path of Exile, Perry?
The last thing that technically the last thing that I did, there was like a Pee-wee rival thing for Pee-wee Royale that I purchased.
Oh, the Twitch Rivals event. Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah. But like before that, it was like Expedition. I played like a week of Expedition, and I was like, you know what? I'm good.
That's a long time ago.
That was a long time. That was like over 3 years ago, right?
Of all the leagues you quit on, you know what? You chose the right one, I guess.
I loosely know what's going on in the world of Path of Exile. People keep me up to date.
The last
sorry, go ahead. Oh yeah, no, please go ahead. But I just want to interject one quick thing. I just recently took you off my friend list in Path of Exile, Perry. I'm sorry to say, but there's only 100. There's only 100 slots, and you went all the way to the bottom. You were the one person that logged in didn't log in for the longest amount of time. So, but I always have to delete people. You know how it is. None of my people in the guild are on my friend list either, because you just have 100 slots. Don't take it personal. What's the last thing you did in Path of Exile, Dread?
So this league, so with all the money that I got from doing the Abyss shenanigans, I decided to try to make the new Infernal Cry, the new Transfigure Gem version. I tried to make that work, because there's an interesting interaction with that and the Savior, where they get their own stacks and they do their own explosions, and it was a very bad experience. So I was playing a Poison Berserker, and I was like, okay, how do I save this? I'm like, how do I make this work? I'm like, okay, let's play with the new Lancing Steel. And oh my god, the new Lancing Steel of spraying is so good. Imagine playing a steel skill, but not having to use Call of Steel. It's so nice. You just sit there and you just spam the Lancing Steel of spraying instead, right? It's so much better, right?
Nice.
So much better. That was the last thing I did in PoE, and then I had to go on my honeymoon.
Had to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to. Unfortunately.
Wait, we went on honeymoon together?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I brought Perry with me. Yeah.
So the last thing I did in Path of Exile was the Gauntlet. I did not think this time that I was gonna play, but like I was so hyped that there was a Gauntlet because it's the first Gauntlet we had in like a year. Scissorin took like a really long sabbatical from organizing the Gauntlets.
I thought we only took one league off.
I thought the last one was like a year ago, honestly. Like there was at least 2 leagues where there wasn't a Gauntlet. And the in a cycle where we only get 3 leagues per year roughly. But anyway, what I was going to say is I expected fully to die. I was going to be like, hey, I do one character, I give it my all, but I'm probably going to die. And then I didn't die. It was terrible. I made it to maps in like 10 hours, right? And I wanted to do Toxic Rain Pathfinder because Pathfinder obviously really good because flask defenses and very hard gauntlet this time. But then during leveling, I decided it's better to do elemental, right? Like hit-based elemental, and I did Rain of Arrows, and then I just kept finding really good elemental bows, and I never actually got to transition into Toxic Rain. I had like level Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow gems, and I tried to farm out the 6-link bow cards in Gardens, and I didn't get a single card. And my damage sucked so hard because I was still elemental hit, and So I gave up. But I really want to get back into a little bit more hardcore and a little bit more skill because it was really fun. It's just I felt like I didn't have a plan and then everything fell apart because I didn't have a plan. Okay. But I mean, I'll have plenty of time to still practice as they extended the league. So after I'm done with what we're going to talk about for the next 2 hours, then we're going to be maybe playing a little bit more Path of Exile. I don't know.
Well, at least you'll be able to practice some hardcore in Last Epoch, like, I'm dead. Oh.
Is that how it typically goes in Last Epoch?
As of right now, as it currently stands on the live servers, yes. Perry can tell you all about it.
Are you saying that like Last Epoch and hardcore is bad because the game is hard for hardcore?
No,
the servers.
The server stuff.
The server is the only thing standing in the way of Last Epoch being an excellent game for hardcore. Like if you were playing offline right now, I would say the Last Epoch's balance and like gameplay is like S tier for hardcore. It's really, really friendly for hardcore. You feel like you're in control. You're not getting one shot from stuff. Like you feel like you're dead because you made like a bad decision a couple minutes ago in your gearing process, but like online, it's just, okay, is the server going to be okay? So like the server is going to be under attack for 1.0 because there's going to be like, not a million,
26,000 people playing today, by the way.
There's going to be 100,000 people for sure. There's going to be 100,000 people for like.
There's going to be 300,000 people.
You think 300,000 people?
I mean, there's 25,000 this weekend before launch.
25,000 playing a week before launch for no particular reason. That's wild to me.
300,000 at least concurrent, not over the course of the day. Concurrent.
Yeah. Wow. All right. It's like, are the servers going to be okay? I don't know.
That's less than a third of the people who have bought copies showing up on day one, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a really good point because there's a million.
Less than a third of the people who bought it would still be 300,000.
It's so weird seeing people play Last Epoch right now because for the longest of time, Ellie has been like, kind of like the side bitch, just a little bit. I'm sorry for the cussing, but like that's essentially what it's been like. Oh, because it's been like, oh yeah, like I'll play Ellie eventually. Like I make a joke with my friends on Discord because they're like, hey, look, Asmund Gold made a new Last Epoch video. He's gonna play it, and like that has happened so many times now. I'm just like, all right, time to make videos, and he doesn't play, and they're like, oh, he did it again. I'm like, oh. And then it's like whenever I see Zizzer make an Ellie video, it's like, oh, it's time to work again. Woohoo! It's just been funny. And now it's like everyone's playing now. It's like, wow, you guys are really late to the party, aren't you?
Something worth noting that I will say, by the way, is while I'm estimating that there will be 300,000 people playing, what I mean is there will be 300,000 people trying to play. I can't promise you that 300,000 people get to play at the same time, but we will be trying.
The queues aren't real, Perry. The queues aren't real. I remember 9.0 with the queues.
Hopefully everything turns out just fine. Like they've been working on it, but struggling or like suffering from success is a real thing when it comes to launching a 1.0 game or like any big patch. Like
something I've
it's
been
great.
telling
Everyone's
Pat,
gonna be there, but
I've been making sure everybody knows is like, do remember this is their first launch ever. So far
Yeah.
they've been an amazing company, and all the people there know the problems that are coming up, and they do seem like they're on top of it. Like they know it's over the top, bigger than they've ever been before, and they're as prepared as they can be. But if you can think back to any online game you've ever played ever that's been decently popular, and remember even one first time launch ever that's ever gone smoothly, I don't remember a single one.
Mhm.
So like, I'm just saying, like, the first few hours of launch, maybe cut them a bit of slack. If it's super long queue times or people are getting disconnected, I promise the team is on it. They're there. They're paying attention. They're trying their best to put out fires if shit goes wrong. But it probably will. So like, we'll be a little forgiving on day one.
It's okay. It'll be like Ultimatum League. I already got my ticket for Stream Queue already. I bought it, so we're good to go.
God, I remember that.
Oh, that was so awful. I remember, like, also the worst part about it was that I actually got a message on Twitter from GGG, like offering me like the streamer queue thing, like as the thing was going on, and then before I got it, they abandoned the idea of having the streamers bypass the queue. So I never got to actually use
one
this.
with the peasants. I must be one with the peasants. I cannot be the royalty.
I mean, I was just obviously on stream. I was just putting an ethical twist on it. You know, guys, I'm one of you. Like, I don't get any special streamer privilege.
Really, it's because he hadn't got it yet.
It's like you're like logged in, right? But you're like hiding your screen that you're already playing.
No,
Exactly.
the best thing about that launch was even if you got the streamer queue, because I got it, it didn't stop you from just disconnecting again. It just meant you didn't have the queue. So I was still disconnecting every zone, and I was leveling with a group of people who didn't have it. So the trick was I would try and enter a zone first, and if it crashed, it meant for right now you can't enter a zone. So I would skip the queue, log back in again, and my friends would be standing there, and I'd try and enter again. And we did that 3 or 4 times until I hit a load screen instead of a disconnect, and then it'd be like, go, 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 everyone in, everyone in.
This is making me a lot less excited. This is making me a lot less excited for the 1.0 launch of Last Epoch. Like my hype is just.
It's okay. All I have
Man.
to say is find a game to play on the side for 1.0. Okay, don't end up like me on multiplayer launch where I literally like make like stupid Inkscape drawings while I'm waiting to actually play.
Oh, I love Inkscape. I just made a screwdriver the other day out of like 6 vector
What
shapes
on
or
earth
something
is
like that.
Inkscape?
It's like
Inkscape.
it's like Paint but better.
Literally never heard of it.
It's an open source vector graphics program. Vector graphics, as opposed to pixel graphics, are just storing like geometrical shapes and objects in your thing, similar to a PowerPoint sheet, right?
It's
like
how
where you
I've
have like
made every single one of my thumbnails ever, Catmaster. It's amazing.
yeah. I use the Inkscape exclusively for my thumbnails.
It's amazing to like see other people like using like Photoshop and stuff like that. I'm just over here using Inkscape, man.
The thing is, Inkscape is pretty derpy, but if you know your way around it, I guess it's faster and more efficient than Photoshop, because Photoshop is just like a bigger program and takes like a minute to launch alone. But yeah. I have a number of points, but I'm just gonna switch the second with the first one. Because we already mentioned Path of Exile, so to onboard the Path of Exile audience that undoubtedly is listening to this podcast, what are the biggest selling points of Last Epoch for the Path of Exile demographic? Or let's do a round. And what's the biggest point for you, Perry, and what is the biggest point that you reckon for potential people looking to try Last Epoch out of the PoE demographic right now?
You want me to go first, Dred? You want to go first?
Go right ahead, Perry. I got you.
So what's the selling point for Last Epoch? So like it's still an action RPG. Hopefully everyone's heard of the game. Like you have the big Path of Exile audience. People know that like Last Epoch is going to be. It's on your radar. It's an action RPG. It's a nice middle ground between the casual audience that like Diablo franchise these days tend to appeal to, and like the more hardcore audience of Path of Exile, where you really just want everything to be a skill tree, and your skill tree should have a skill tree with another skill tree inside of it. So like that's Path of Exile, right? Last Epoch has a very good onboarding process for new players. Like Dread and I, we both content creators. We both make a ton of YouTube build guides. You only get to be a new player once, and being a new player in Last Epoch is wonderful. Like you can just mess around, you can try new things, you can respec your builds. You're not using orbs of regret to change things. You could basically never brick a character. You're
Except
gonna
the Chief
have
Shaman.
fun. No, no. We're not gonna talk about that yet. It's you're going to log in. You're going to have fun, especially if you're already a Path of Exile player and you know that recently means the last 4 seconds, and you know that more and increased are 2 different words, and that like one's multiplicative, one's additive. If you know those like basic pieces of terminology for like what it means to play an action RPG in 2024, you already know most of the hard parts.
Oh, those things are overlaps. So recently in Last Epoch is exactly the same, and more and increases also.
Terminology. Yep.
And what about nearby? Is it also exactly the same as in Path of Exile?
There is
No.
But
There's
they use like a
meters.
meter system.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that'll be different, or like there's a couple small things that are different, but you can stumble across those as you peruse like Last Epoch content. It's a really good starter game. If you want more complexity, once you want to start min-maxing your builds and you want to look for more juice, you want to find some interesting niche interactions, there's tons of those, because that's what Dread and I like so much. Like the surface level is excellent and deep diving into it is excellent. And the game's only been getting better and better for like the past 5 years or so. So it's great. It's a really good use of $35.
Mm-hmm. So my selling point for Last Epoch, I think the best part of Last Epoch, because I've been flip-flopping between PoE and Last Epoch, is whenever I play PoE, I'm always focused on making as much currency as possible, because obviously that's Path of Exile, right? For me, anyways, that's how I've been playing since 3.0. But whenever I play LE, I never feel that same kind of pressure to make currency. I'm more like trying to improve my build and focus on my build. Now, of course, that might be the case of, you know, me playing a game that's essentially been an SSF this entire time, right?
And
but
maybe
also
that changes.
Yeah. And like whenever I play LE, it's for like a completely different reason than PoE. Like whenever I want to take a build and I just want to like just mess around and like theory craft and stuff like that, I always like launch Last Epoch and have some fun. I'll even like play some Last Epoch like during a PoE season whenever I'm like just trying to relax after like a long day of farming, just to like get my brain thinking and stuff like that. Whenever I play Path of Exile, I'm like hardcore, make currency, let's go, right? And it's definitely that's how I felt with it personally. Now, of course, that might not be the case in the future. MG, right? But we'll see.
Well, that sounds like a lot like.
Mm-hmm. What's up?
It sounds a lot like that you're just taking Last Epoch more easy, right? Like that's like it's that's not on the game side. That it's like your approach to the game where you're taking Path of Exile a lot more serious and you're grinding it a lot harder. And Last Epoch is just like something that is a little bit more relaxed to you because it feels more like home.
That's the funny part is I think it's easy. I think the selling point is it's easier to feel like that for Last Epoch because whenever I play Last Epoch, I like obviously I've been playing for a long time now, right? But like I've seen like new players will hop in and they'll feel comfortable in like the first like few days. Like in PoE, like I never feel comfortable. I always feel like as though I'm slacking. I always feel like I'm never doing good enough in Last Path of Exile. But in Last Epoch, even like as a new player, I doubt that you'd feel like as though like, oh, like I'm not making as much as Mr. Streamer Man or whatever. Because like it's never really been about that of recent. Maybe it'll change, like I said, but we'll see.
Right, that's fair.
I have a different selling point that has nothing to do with playing the game, which has sold a bunch of people in my chat and might sell a bunch of people on the idea who are like PoE vets long term. And this has got nothing to do with actually playing the game.
Okay, I'm curious now.
The company, 11th Hour Gaming, has at least to me felt almost exactly like dealing with grinding gear games felt 8 to 10 years ago. It feels like a small group of people who are just part of the community in general that just happened to be making a game. At no point talking to them, at no point interacting with them anywhere, does it feel like a developer and us situation. It just feels like an us situation, and these few people in here are developers, and they are in different streams all the time. They're in their Discord all the time. They do their own streams all the time. You don't have to be a content creator to talk to them or get responses at all. I know that's quite often the thing we see in PoE, that like content creators get a little easier access with PoE than a regular player does, which I'm sure was never their original intent, but at some point you grow so big that you have to like, you can't be responding to several 100,000 people all the time, right?
God
like,
bless Mike, by the way.
Yeah, but in LE, this is that feeling I had 8-10 years ago of just, this is a team of degenerate gamers who are just part of the ARPG sphere, who just live to do ARPGs, who have just decided to make one, and they're just in it. They are just us, and that's been honestly my biggest selling point. People are like, really? And then they go and have a look around, and then they'll drop into a dev stream and they'll just start typing in chat, and the developers that are in chat and the developer that is streaming will just reply to them and talk to them and engage in all sorts of things. It's like, that's what it is. It's just that, and that's actually been my biggest selling point.
I like your point, but I've got a joke to add to it too. There used to be like one thing that I really called out as like, here's why I like Last Epoch over Path of Exile. When I played Path of Exile, I wore a wrist brace, and my wrist felt like it was falling off all the time. Ever since I played Last Epoch, I've never worn that brace. Complete waste of money. I don't wear a wrist brace anymore. Look at me. I don't. I'm not in pain right now. Oh.
I have compression gloves for the same reason, and I don't have to wear them in Last Epoch.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's such a funny thing too, because like everyone, when they come over to LE, right, they're always like, I want a 1-button build. I want a 1-button build. And it's like, I always like feel like I'm pressing way more buttons when I'm playing PoE. What are you guys talking about?
I make 1-button PoE builds too.
Oh, I mean, like my hands, they just start hurting in PoE, but like when I play LE, like I never feel like that, right? And it's like, yeah. And to reiterate what Perry was talking about, Mike, I'll be honest, like Mike's just a little too good at it sometimes. Like,
he's too kind.
He's
really too kind for his own good. So Mike is the developer who does the Friday dev streams, and he also responds on the Discord channel. And like I've got this running gag where I say that he is too good for this world, and he answers too many questions, and he's too nice, and having like, he's a developer, right? Shouldn't he be developing something? He's a very accessible individual, and he will answer your question, whether that's like a good use of time.
You could literally spit in his cereal and like pour motor oil into it, and he'll just be like, dang, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like you could ask him like, hey, what's the right way to go to the bathroom? And he would answer you. He's a very kind person.
Well, the power of getting paid.
I tell you what's my favorite part of the dev stream with Mike is watching him struggle with the generic streamer things that we've all struggled with at some point. Losing track of chat, or getting distracted by chat and dying in game to something you shouldn't have died to, or like accidentally leaving an overlay thing up that he meant to get rid of, or like one of those things that you're like, I've done that.
That's gonna be so much worse.
I love that
1.0, man. I feel for Mike. I hope that he gets some help for the next time he does like a dev stream after 1.0. So like he doesn't like he needs to have like another person with him to answer questions for him while he plays. It's like it's getting to that point. Somebody's
gonna have to talk to him and tell him how the really, really big people deal with that shit. Which is that you have a mod or two sitting around and their job is to troll chat. Not troll chat, sorry. Wrong word. Their job is to like read the chat questions, and what they do is they pull the questions, including the username out, and they put it into a Google Doc or something that you also have open, so that the streamer themselves doesn't have to track absolutely everything, but doesn't miss the important questions. They show up live in a Google Doc. You get to read them off that doc, answer them to the person because the name is there, and then that question disappears because one of the mods deal with it.
Yeah.
That's how the
Someone
really, really
clip
big
that.
people
That-
deal with that shit.
Someone should clip that right now. That'd be a great recommendation.
You could not
It is-
trust me to do that because every single time I'd pick out a comment, it's like, Mike, when are you doing the bee dance again?
Yeah, by the way, I have that functionality here. So I can see all the chat comments here on Twitch and YouTube, and I can star them and highlight them so for us to not forget to react to them later. So if you guys have important questions or talking points for us to address, make sure to leave them in chat, and we'll go over them in the end.
Yeah, it's sort of the only way to deal with it when you're at like, 4, 5, 10, 20,000, whatever. Right? Like there's a point at which one person can't keep up no matter what. And that's
If you get to
how
that
you
point, I'll
end.
gladly be your dedicated chat reader, Balor.
When you get to that point, you pay somebody to be in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't say I was going to do it for free.
Right.
Yeah, no. I had a great segue, but the segue fell apart. I wanted to say what's my selling point before we do the segue. So it's good that I didn't do the segue. I think I agree with Balor, as always. No, that's an overstatement. But
I think that's
in this
at least
specific case,
50-50.
in this specific case, I felt that same feeling, but I want to extend that by saying that outside of Diablo 2 back in the day, which I didn't really get to enjoy as much as I would have liked to, because back in the day I didn't have internet and I wasn't as much of a gamer as I am today. Still like fairly casual gamer, but PoE is kind of the prototype ARPG for me because it's just been the main game in the genre that I've been playing, and for a lot of aspects in Path of Exile that are, overlap with other ARPGs, a lot of things, the way that they work in Path of Exile, it's easy to take them for granted, right? To be like, oh, that's just how things are done. But Path of Exile is kind of untypical in many ways, and that's one of the things that I enjoyed most about Last Epoch when I first played it, and every time I did return to it, is that at almost every junction where the developers are like, okay, are we going to do this like Path of Exile, or are we going to do it a different way? They seem to purposefully go the other route. I don't know whether that is like
Or
by
better
design
or for worse, by the way, sometimes. For better or for worse.
That's why I'm thinking it's deliberate to just be different, because in some situations it's really maybe not the best decision to not copy Path of Exile, because it's been around for so long. It's bound to have done some things right. But no,
I have a story for that if you want.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
So,
basically my point.
A long time ago, back in the olden days when I first started playing, Last Epoch did not have the stereotypical resistance system that you see in most ARPGs these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
They had protection. See, Baylor remembers, and I think Perry, you might have been there for like a little bit.
I've researched it. I wasn't actually around for it.
Yeah.
When it wasn't percentage-based mitigation, right?
Nope. So the way it worked is, imagine you have 500 life, right? And you had 500 physical protection. So you combine both of those and then divide it by like 2 or whatever, right? And that was your reduction, right? So what would happen is you would have a very low amount of life, right? Like 500 most of the time. And then very large amounts of protections, okay? You'd have like 20,000 protections versus like 500 life, and you take like 99.99% less damage. And the system was cool. It was very interesting. It was very cool. I liked it. Like there was a lot of cool ways where you could like convert one protection to another, so you could like kind of like double dip. And there was a lot of interesting things about that system. But what it caused was there was just this constant war. I'm sure you remember it, Baylor, because you were there. It's this constant war between protections, ward, protections, ward. Oh, they nerf ward, protections are OP again. Oh, they nerf ward, and they realize, all right, guys, we got to give up on this. Like, we like it, but it's not worth the dev time.
It was so fun to have a different system, but it did result in, if it was a life-based meta, you would actively avoid life. You didn't want life on any gear. You didn't want to take life on your passives, because the whole formula was based off how much of the protection of elements you have compared to your maximum life.
Yeah. The more
less
HP
life
you have,
the
more
more
the
the resistance.
Yeah, like every single point of life you had was worth sustain you had. And back in the day, we didn't have Uber Leech or anything like that. So like you needed every like little bit. And this just caused the devs to just be like, we just got to get rid of this, man. I'm sorry. Like we're done. We got to get
tried
rid
to
of
do
it.
something that wasn't normal resistance, and we tried very hard, but it's just not worth it. We have to go back to
And
resistance.
sometimes it's better to just do what everyone else is doing because there's a reason for it.
I still love that they tried to do something very, very, very different.
I agree. It was
like,
very
that's
nice.
fine.
And
they've done that like
fondly.
They've done that hundreds of times, and probably half of them don't work out.
Yeah.
They go, there's a good reason that that's not done a different way, and they change it back. But like the other half are different because they tried it and went, yeah, this works. Fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Like there's quite a few different things in here.
Well, you can go on that segue, Mr. Catmaster, now if you want. That was
Well, I mean, before we delve into the nitty gritty of how the things are really different, and we praise the crafting system and the end game for its innovation, and like something I'm curious about, and something that I am really not that competent at judging, and something that you might be better suited to answer, seeing that you've been playing this game for the past 2 years, I believe,
4.
at least 4. Yeah,
almost 5 this March.
so what I'm curious about is you are obviously very hyped about the release, so am I, so is Balor, so are a lot of people who have never played before. But for someone who's been playing for so long, like what are actually the things that you are excited about on the full launch? Like how much discovery and mystery is still awaiting for you guys as someone who has like played the game in and out for the past 4 years?
Perry, I'll let you go first if you want.
It's been about 3 years for me, by the way. Like, Last Epoch for 3 years for me. What am I excited for on the 1.0 launch? So, for the people who are not in the loop, there was a nice dev blog that kind of outlined what is coming in 1.0. So we have 2 new masteries. The Rogue is getting the 3rd mastery. They're getting Falconer. Acolyte's getting the 3rd mastery. They're getting Warlock. We're getting a tiny little mini update, tiny mini rework for Shaman. Shaman's been a meme for a long time. It sounds like he's not going to be a meme in the future, so that's very good.
Please.
We're getting a new skill for Paladin. Paladin's getting a skill tree for healing hands, which Dread and I are both very excited for. We'll get to that.
It looks so good.
We're getting the trade factions. Like there's a COF, Circle of Fortune, which is like a pseudo SSF kind of thing. And then Merchant's Guild. It's not SSF like you play alone or you play with people. It's where do you want your cool items to come from? Do you want your cool items to come from the ground, or do you want your cool items to come from the market where you buy them from somewhere else? That was like Merchant Guild versus COF.
It's Magic Find.
Yeah,
Well, they didn't have that.
Magic Find.
So
They didn't have that in the game
things
until
are new.
now, because I remember that's been talked about for like a year now, but there was no
Factions-
like implementation
factions are
in the
not-
game. Okay.
Yeah. The factions
Okay.
are not in the game yet. Factions will be there for 1.0.
Okay,
The last
I'm
couple
forced.
things. Sorry,
I'm forced.
let me finish this train of thought.
Oh,
I know.
Let Perry finish
Sorry.
what else is there.
Sorry.
Like the other things that are new, there'll be new unique items too. So like maybe there's something we can build around. There'll like be new idols and class specific affixes, which oftentimes bring around like build defining things that you can do with a skill that make it more interesting. And then there'll also be a change to corruption scaling. We don't have information about this yet, but like, you hear people say like, oh, can this build do 200 corruption? Can this build do 500 corruption? I'm doing 3,000 corruption because I have no other games to play with my time. All those numbers, we have to throw those numbers out because they're all changing. We don't know what the new corruption system is. We have like a rough idea of what its goals are, but we don't know what the changes are. So those are the changes. That's what 1.0 is going to be.
Yeah, real quick before you get on to the corruption thing, to give you PoE boys some context, imagine someone, made a build in Path of Exile, right? And they were showcasing their build in like tier 16 content and like full delirious and stuff. Now imagine if that person doing that content had a completely different situation, like different like feeling for their build than the other person that's doing the same content, solely based on the modifiers, right? Because it's just insanely inconsistent difficulty scaling, and you could either have a really, really good time or a really, really bad time, just depending on which modifiers you accidentally pick.
And like depending on communication as well. Like if I'm talking to Dread or I'm talking to like a new player, if I say my build can do 1,000 corruption, that literally doesn't mean anything. because all the difficulty comes from the modifiers, not from the fact that you're at 1,000 corruption. So like it's hard to communicate, and that's one of the goals of the new system. The system that we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
I forget the initial question. I got sidetracked. I'm just talking about 1.0. What are we excited for? Oh, Bail Image, go ahead.
I feel like I'm fighting with every second content creator making Last Epoch stuff.
Oh, really?
People keep calling Circle of Fortune the solo self-found faction.
You're right.
And it isn't solo self-found. I'm starting with a group. I plan to play with that group. We're all doing Circle of Fortune. We're all going to be able to trade with each other. We're all going to be able to party. I've got another friend that's starting late because of work. He will be starting a few days in. When he gets to Monolith, he'll be able to just join us. He's not even part of our team, so it's not even group found. You can find people later on, party with them, trade with them while you're in the party.
Yes.
All sorts
Could you
of things.
just call that like a mini private league then at that point?
Well, so
because anyone can come in.
Baylor's totally right about this.
I know.
It's got nothing at all to do with Magic Fight with solo self-found. It is just the ability to target farm stuff better and have better drops on the ground. If anything, it's just an MF with the ability to target faction, and the other faction has access to the auction house. But you're both playing in the trade league. You both play with other people. It's not solo self-found.
You're totally correct. Yeah.
The problem is, multiplayer has been out for almost a year now, and I will say it definitely is not in the best state currently on the on the live servers. Okay, it might be better for 1.0, but currently right now playing multiplayer with other people is at least a little painful here or there. So I barely have played actual multiplayer Last Epoch. So like when I think of COF, I'm used to playing by myself.
Yeah, which is fine, but that's just like playing in the trade league in PoE, but not grouping with anyone. You're still not playing solo self-found. There's a solo self-found mode. You can tick it when you make the character.
I mean, to be fair, when you check the solo self-found mode, you're always going to choose COF, right? So
I hope so.
Yeah.
But those are unrelated things. Like
can you even choose the Merchant's Guild in solo self-found?
I don't think you can, Cat Master.
How are you going to rank up if there's no trades to do?
We have been told that you can choose it, but it will literally do nothing. And I hope that they make it so you can't choose it. That would be dumb.
No, I want them to let you keep choosing it because I think it's funny.
The real hardcore experience for Last Epoch, going all the way back to Calandra League, but in the Last Epoch style.
Yeah, and like if you were playing offline, for example, you would hopefully be selecting COF as well. Hopefully they make it so that you can't click Merchant's Guild if you're doing offline, because that doesn't make any sense. I hope.
Hang on. Wasn't one of the things in Merchant Guild an increased amount of gold drop?
No.
Not that I've seen.
I thought gold specifically was on the Merchant Guild. Was I wrong?
Nope.
Okay.
Don't get increased
Not
gold.
unless you know something I don't know. But
Okay, never mind.
Baylor spoiling things now.
No shit. The NDA.
Well, you do get more gold because you can sell your items for gold to other people.
Not if you're playing offline, you don't.
Right, but I thought I'd read something about there being just increased gold drop rate, and I was like, I don't know, maybe at some point there'll be an argument for gold.
I mean, that would be interesting. That would be interesting.
Recently, they decided to disassociate gold with corruption for 1.0, but we'll see how that works.
I saw that. Yeah. So currently on live servers, if you want to make more gold, you just push higher corruption, you get more gold with that. They are detaching those two things. So how do I make the most gold? It no longer has to do with
it's gonna be monos per hour, essentially. That's what it's gonna be.
So maybe if you want gold, you just do low corruption.
Movement speed stacking, baby.
Movement speed, baby. Cool.
Yeah. You guys should stop me because I'll talk about that for an hour.
Now we're already sort of in the middle of the item faction, so let's just go into that. We're all doing Circle of Fortune on start.
No, I'm going MG. So as you know, Perry and I, we do a podcast, the Epic Epoch podcast, right? We've been doing it for a while now. And when we were doing the Item Factions podcast, the one you listened to, it was very quick for us to realize that we were both insanely biased. For the past 4 years, we've been playing Last Epoch. So we didn't really have a devil's advocate for the Merchants Guild because like we kind of think the Merchants Guild suck, right? But due to that, I'm going to sacrifice at the very least my first week of gameplay to play Merchants Guild so that we can at least have an inside man on the job.
Yeah.
So we can actually have a conversation. So like MG sucks, Omega lol, right? Like we can actually have a conversation.
Racing to 100 stash tabs.
So, I think that is the wrong way to play it.
I know it's the wrong way to play it. It is exactly
No.
the wrong way to play it.
Because I think Merchant Guild in the long run is better. But it will not be better in the first week or two.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because where Merchant Guild is going to like pop off is when you can get the ability to start buying 3 and 4 LP items.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't going to exist week 1, at least in numbers relevant to be able to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
You see, what's
So
funny
I
is
think-
you're assuming they'll exist at all. No, I'm joking. They might in MG because like there's enough people playing.
Yeah.
That is the question. Are there going to be enough people playing? Because I haven't heard from many people.
That is the
I've
biggest
heard
problem.
Merchants Guild described as a Ponzi scheme,
100%.
so I'm not going to play it.
That is by far the biggest, like the biggest problem with Merchants Guild is because what's going to happen is people are going to play Merchants Guild, right? And they're going to watch their favorite streamer play Merchants Guild. And then their favorite streamer is going to swap off of Merchants Guild because COF is eventually better. Okay? And then what's going to happen after that is all those people that are watching it is like, oh, I want to play COF too. And then you have all these people leaving the economy. And the less people in an MG overall, I bet the worse the experience is going to be overall, right? Because you'll like, has anyone ever played hardcore trade in PoE? It sucks, right? It sucks like really bad. So you're just going to keep like feeding into itself, and eventually there's just going to be like 5 people in MG. Obviously, that's like an over
Are
exaggeration.
you saying that capitalism is only the best system we have if everyone's forced to participate in it?
I mean,
Are you saying that if I'm allowed to opt out of
my
it,
God.
that capitalism crumbles? Wait a minute.
oh no, please don't. But yeah, like that's like the biggest issue with MG is because COF never gets worse based on the amount of people playing. Because you just play, right? It never gets worse. But MG gets worse as the league goes on, in theory, because like less people are playing. Now, of course, like Baylor said, there might be good stuff on the market and stuff like that, but it might be combated by just having less people playing, right?
I think you could be right, but the only reason you're going to be right about how that works is because that's how people think it's going to work. I think it's the reverse of that. I think everyone is better off starting Circle of Fortune. That will be a better way to start. I think Merchants Guild comes into power a week or two into a league.
Yeah, but only if there's people
It
playing
ends
it.
up being the best. If enough people swap to it.
Yeah.
But is there a reasonable way that you can start Circle of Fortune and then swap into Merchants
Oh
Guild?
yeah,
Because
easily. Yeah. Because guess what? All the gold that you get while you're playing Circle of Fortune, what are you going to use it on other than stash tabs? You can just save it up, and then by the time you swap over to MG, I'm like, oh, I can buy my starter gear. We're good to go, right?
yeah, but like the items that you acquire get marked with the symbol of the specific faction, right? So you
if
can't
you-
like swap
so
and continue your build. You'd have to make a new.
If you're in COF, the items that you drop that are influenced by Magic Find will have a mark on them saying that they were influenced by Magic Find. However, not all items that you drop will be influenced by Magic Find. So you will have some gear that is not marked. You could save that, put it aside, and then when you want to swap, you swap gear sets.
So, like for instance, right now there's a reward that we don't know if it'll change or not. There's a 35% chance to double an Echo reward. The doubled Echo reward, the extra one, is going to be COF tagged, and the other one is not going to be COF tagged.
Presumably, yeah.
Presumably, right? Meaning that if you are smart about it, you will never run into this issue. Now, the other way around it might be a little bit more of an issue because it's not always if you could spend gold to buy a bunch of gear in COF, right? Because like when you level a new character in MG, right, you're like, oh, I can just buy this item, buy that item, or eventually when you get the reputation up, right? But in CO, like if you swap from MG to COF, like it's no man's land. You got to start fresh, essentially.
Which really isn't a hard thing to do. It's not.
Not at all. By the way, that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is like Last Epoch is not necessarily a very hard video game as it currently stands, at least in the current state of it.
So I want to propose an alternative to Baylor Mitch's description. And I like your description. Like you're saying, like if you want to target farm like a 3 or 4 LP, Merchant's Guild is a more systematic, deterministic way of approaching that, because eventually someone's going to drop it. They're going to hopefully they put it on the market, right? That's great. One of the things that really appeals to me about COF is like, okay, well, COF kind of represents how I want to interact with the game. And as a content creator, it appeals to me. As a gamer, it appeals to me. But here's one potential use case that really speaks to me. And that is, as a COF gamer, I'm going to get juiced up drops rates, and I'm going to have increased chance to get LP on a random unique item that drops. And there's a better chance in COF that I'm going to find a random unique item with 2 or 3 LP on it that excites me, that I didn't know I was looking for, that isn't for my current build. And that, I love that. Some people, you might hate that. To me, I love it.
I'm going to love that too when I swap eventually.
I want to be debated into playing this next build because I just found a sweet item for it. And on the market, you never find a sweet item. You just you buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, but you drop sweet items on the ground and you're like, oh, that would be good for this or that build. I'm not going to play it myself, but I'm selling it to someone who's playing that build.
I'm glad that speaks to you, but it didn't speak to me.
It's the same philosophy as in PoE, realistically. Like in PoE, if you're playing in a trade league with access to the economy, you try to decide and figure out what your next build will be, and then purchase or make gear for it.
Okay.
Whereas normally, if you're in solo self-found, this is not Cycle of Fortune is not solo self-found, but generally, when you're in solo self-found, you don't plan your next build. You drop items on the floor and you go, yo, that would work, right? And so it's that feeling, which I'm probably never changing to the Merchant Guild, at least not in season 1 or season 0 or cycle 0.
My point being is the feeling for me is very much the same, whether I play SSF or trade. I find something like, oh, that could work for this or that build. And then it fills me with a great sense of accomplishment and pride if I actually level a character and use an item that I found before for exactly that purpose that I envisioned before. But it's not that much worse to sell it and to see someone else incorporate that item into their build. That always feels good for me as well, especially if I did a good job at assessing the item value, recognizing that the item has value, then pricing it correctly and successfully selling it is always also a great feeling.
So,
I don't have to use it myself.
You're like a proud dad who's like, here, take this item. And I want to see you succeed with the cool item that I just dropped. And you're like, oh boy, look at him go. Look at him kill those monsters.
Part of the problem too is when we say MG sucks. You got to remember, Perry and I have been playing the COF lifestyle this entire time for Last Epoch. That's all we know. We're used to the drop rates. We know what items are easily findable, what's realistic and stuff like that. I could eventually farm a 1 LP Twisted Heart, and COF is just going to make that playstyle just better. So part of the problem with the MG stuff for me is I need to think about it in a different light than I've seen Last Epoch before. I need to rev up my PoE gamer instincts more. We gotta get that back and going. And
if you want to min-max one build, then Merchant Guild probably speaks to you a lot more.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, if you want to play a bunch of different builds, COF will be much better for that.
Something else that I think is worth mentioning when we're talking about these two guilds is I've never seen any game try and do trade in this kind of system.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally never seen it, ever. I don't think it's ever been done like this anywhere, which does mean you might be right. It might actually be in season 0. Merchant guilds are just shit and not worth playing.
They are.
But if that ends up being the case, I have no doubt that there will just be rebalances to how good the two are. They're gonna want people playing in both. They probably don't want or don't care for it to be a perfect 50-50 split or anything, but there wants to be a good reason to do both.
Yeah, well, they just made a change.
Our experiment, right?
Yeah. They literally just made a change today. I don't know if you saw it, but
I didn't.
So essentially, before you would have to get reputation to buy and sell things on the market. Now they're making it so that the reputation grind for MG is only to buy items. If you
Ah,
drop an
okay.
item,
They're taking a page out of the PoE2 gold book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you wanna sell an item that you drop, like you're playing a new character and you're like level 70 and you got reputation 2 or something like that, right? And you drop that 2 LP Marina's Lost Soul or whatever, right? You're like, I want to sell this because I don't want to play this build because it's stinky, right? Well, the problem is you wouldn't be able to sell that till like 20 hours into your experience or however much, but now you could just sell it and then buy some random stuff that you'd be able to buy at that time, or buy stash tabs in this case, right? Because you see the real reason. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to give some context so people know like what the time frame was going to look like. So you had to like kill monsters in order to gain reputation, and there were like reputation levels like 0 through 10. And reputation level 10, if you were a merchant guild person, you had to kill this many monsters in order to sell a legendary item. And that's like a unique item that you already put in the LP oven and you already put extra affixes on it, and it's already got that cool red text, like a finished item, right? So in order to sell that, you had to be reputation level 10, which is you are expected to get reputation level 10 after level 100. So before the change that happened today, you would make this item, you're like, oh man, I want to sell this item. You can't until after level 100. You have to do all this work to be able to sell the thing that you've already made if you want to sell it. So that problem is no longer there.
It has insane implications for the economy, right? Because imagine in Path of Exile, no one could sell items, like no one, right, could sell items till level like 90 or something like that. Imagine what the market on day one would look like if that was the case, right?
Like imagine you couldn't sell. What if you couldn't sell double corrupted gear until you got to 100?
Yeah, like
what's
yeah, like something like that, and that was going to be the potential issue. And now that they fix that, now MG is going to have a much more what I would call a healthier economy, because you're gonna have all these people playing at like level 80, dropping all these extra things that will actually get to make it into the market instead of being gone forever, right?
Yeah.
Which it possibly could have been. So I like that change.
That is cool.
Yeah.
There's something that I'm not like 100% clear on, but so someone finds an item, they list it on the market, then I go and I buy that item. The moment that I buy it, can I decide to list it again and resell it to someone else?
No, anything sold through the market is once only.
Yep.
So like every item has like can be sold number of times 1, and that number goes down by 1 every time it's sold.
Yep.
And then
It's just one. Yep.
Now,
and there's no way to increase that number.
So that system does not apply to trading with like your friends that you're playing with, only through the bazaar.
Well, that's called item gifting, which is totally different than item trading.
Oh my god.
That is just
That whole
different
thing,
for
man. That whole thing, man.
Just to explain that to anyone who doesn't know, because we're talking about trading and not trading, and so we've not actually touched on that. For regardless of what faction you go with, whether you're the Merchant Guild or the Circle of Fortune, that doesn't matter for this part. So you will have, if you're partying with people, if you're playing with your friends, you will just be able to gift an item to them. This is basically just trading. You'll be able to just trade an item that drops in your map if they were there when it dropped. Just like in like Diablo 3. Like there's no restriction on that you've got an amount of time. You can just be like, oh, this item dropped in our map. This is for you, not me. And you can just hand it over. And that's fine as long as they were there. There's one other system, which is resonance.
Resonance,
which
exactly.
Is if let's just say that all 4 of us have been partying for the past like 6 days. We've just been playing together for ages. But Catmaster has to go do work somewhere or do something. He's not around today, and the rest of us are still playing. And we drop something that's for Catmaster, and we're like, oh man, he wasn't here. This is like the best item. Because we've been playing for an amount of time, we will have these little like resonance stones. I don't know if they're actually items or not, but they are items.
You find them, right?
We'll have like this resonance item.
Yep.
Because we've played with each other for an amount of time. There's some RNG involved, but like you will get a few of these just playing with someone, and that'll give you the ability to gift that item to them even if they weren't there when it dropped. So there's that whole system of trade is completely separate from whether you pick Merchant Guild or Circle of Fortune. So like
Right.
playing with friends and whatnot will be still pretty smooth, regardless of which faction you pick.
So Baylor Mage and I are going to go on resonance dates. So like, you know, every day, like 5 p.m., we're going to go on a date. We're going to build up some resonance. We're going to find these items, and then we can give to each other later on. Yeah.
You want to build some resonance with me,
Easy.
Perry?
Yo, we want to build some resonance.
So,
You wanna
speaking of
resonate?
the resonance stuff, we can talk about that some more. So, yeah. So hopefully they find a solution for this. But as it currently stands, there are probably going to be some kind of form of this. I've already talked about it.
Yeah, I know what you're going on
Called,
about.
it's called a residence server. Okay, what you do is you have a bunch of people in COF in a group of friends, right, or in general in a private Discord server, right? And as you drop really ridiculous things, you post it in the Discord like, "Hey, I dropped this etc. broken item. I'll go on a residence date if you can give me something of equal value," right?
Wait, is this a polyamorous resonance dating server?
Yes, essentially, yes.
Wow.
I call it the COF cult. That's what I call it. And I have a group of friends that currently we plan on making a COF cult where we it's like, hey, there's an item here. You want to go on a resonance date together with that? I want that 3LP Twisted Heart. I'll give you this instead. And that might end up becoming a problem because like the way item gifting currently works is it's a trust-based system, and you two play PoE, so you know exactly where this is going. Since it is a trust-based system, you could give someone your really ridiculous item through the COF like resonance thing, right? The resonance thing. And they could just not give the item back. They could give a different item, or they could just not give you an item, which means that you have essentially been scammed. And we all know where this goes down. We all know where this road leads. So, but thankfully, the way that they've done it is the resonances are going to be rare, and you're going to have to play a while with the person. And we don't know amount because like they don't want to give us the amount, obviously, right? Then people would game the system. But the biggest problem with this is balancing between what is inconvenient for a casual player playing with their friend to get a resonance versus a power gamer group trading with resonances, right? Like what's the balance between like annoying enough so that we only do the CLF resonance dates with random people if it's a very good item versus like a casual, just like I want to give like my thing to Catmaster or whatever, right? And that balance is going to be very, very, very important in the future, because if it is wrong in either way, either the casuals get screwed, right? Or the people who play less, or the people who are like COF cultists, they'll essentially like make a whole Discord, and like I said, you know how all that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could make a Discord with, vouchers and like a rating
yeah.
system
Don't even
and where
start.
people
I
get
don't
kicked
even
out.
know. No.
I already said
I'm just saying it's something
I
that could
have-
happen.
The 1.0 Last Epoch launch continues to become less and less exciting.
I have my 20 blog posts already ready for my Discord server, okay? If I make a COF cultist Discord, I already have all of my blog posts ready, just ready to go, ready to post. Like, I'm ready. Like, I have like 5 Steve Jobs references in there, okay? Like, we're good to go. Like, I'm ready for that.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
So
one
there's
person gets that.
so there's that problem with Circle of Fortune, and I'm surprised that no one has brought this up before when I like asked you guys about like being able to trade multiple times. But being able to trade an item only exactly once seems like that might be the restriction that breaks the Merchant Guild's neck in this first iteration, in my opinion, because like a lot of the like market mobility in Path of Exile comes from the fact that people buy things that they need for a couple of levels and then sell them again, right? And we know from all the dev rants, right, that Chris and the other developers from Path of Exile always go on, where they philosophically talk about like an item has inherent value to you because it's an item that theoretically you could trade away to someone else. But in Last Epoch, then, the item loses that value of being theoretically tradable to someone else the moment that it's been traded once. So you pay this huge amount of money to get your item,
And favor.
the moment you get it,
favor
and
is
favor,
gone.
and then that value is just gone. You're now stuck with this item, and you can't turn it back into value.
Yeah, but it has so that's the like negative of that system. But the positive of that system is, one, items retain value for way longer. In fact, like in perpetuity, like they maintain value forever because
there's no
the
inflation.
time one is bought, it's gone. And it also 100% completely removes all flipping and market manipulation.
Well, there's
which is either a really good thing or a really bad thing.
So there's actually
I'm
one.
gonna interject it for a moment, but like one of the
yeah.
very early dev posts that that EHG made is they said, like, listen, if you want to be a market manipulator, if you want to buy all boots that have the highest tier 7 movement speed, and you want to be the movement speed boot guru, corner the market on it so you can jack up the price, this is not the game for you. And they've said that straight out. And to me, I like that. And to someone else, they're going to say, okay, maybe I don't play Last Epoch. But that's a firm stance they have so far.
Speaking of all this, I recently had a video where I talked about all of this with Sir Gog, because Sir Gog has not played Last Epoch at all and has not kept up with anything Last Epoch related, which made him the perfect candidate for talking about these kind of trade situations if they were in the foil of Path of Exile, because sadly, Path of Exile is like the only other game that like is anywhere near this, right? So like, what else are we supposed to do? And I was talking to him about the retradability and stuff. And the thing that he brought up, the biggest thing that he brought up is it completely removes any middleman whatsoever. So like, for instance, he was saying like, well, if I'm in Path of Exile and I'm like, oh, I want to like craft this item up to the step. I want to buy the space item. I want to craft it up to the step. And then I want to sell it for much more. If I want to do that and make money that way, I cannot do that in a economy where I can't retrade, right? Also, as well, another thing that he brought up as well, which was very interesting, is the top tier items aren't going to be the problem. It's going to be like the tier of items right below top tier that are still like desirable. Because what will happen is a lot of those top tier items below the top items, like they will be used and then thrown away after you get to the topper tier items, right? Like for instance, I'm trying to think of like what's an example of an item that you would play with Perry and then upgrade to a better one later on.
Any 1 LP unique item.
Yeah, like any 1 LP unique item, and then like you upgrade to like a 2 LP unique item. Yep. Well, like the problem becomes like the quantity of things being put into the trade versus the amount of demand, right? And what happens is there might be a time where that 1 LP, like, I don't know, Flair's Pride that you want for your build, right? It might might not exist, and you have to go farm one for yourself. It literally might not
really
exist.
Isn't that big an issue.
Yeah, it's not a big an issue, but like it can become an issue, especially if like, the quote unquote Mathel effect comes around, right? Like it could easily become an issue at that point, I think.
So what Catmaster said previously, it makes a lot of assumptions based on what we think 1.0 might look like, and we're not sure about that.
Yeah.
So you say like you're going to spend all this gold on your item, and like gold is the only thing that you're going to be able to trade with. Like you can put some reputation in the system, but like no one else gets. It's gold. Just simplicity's sake, it's gold. So I make 1 million gold, and then I'm going to give you 1 million gold for your item. 1 million gold's not that much. You can farm up 1 million gold in a day if you're just blasting content. How much gold are people going to sell these things for? What else are you using your gold on? Like, are you just buying a bunch of stash tabs? Because there's no other gold sing in the game right now
that we know of.
That we know.
Muffin has been teasing
like lightless arbor, but if you're not doing
there's the gamblers, right? There's the regular gamblers in town, then there's the faction gambler with the merchant skill.
Yeah, there's that one, yeah.
And the end game gambler in the dungeon or whatever it is.
That's just soulfire juice. That's not actual gold.
Yeah, it doesn't spend gold.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like we haven't played 1.0. We haven't played 1.0. Yeah. We don't know how much gold people are going to list things for. We don't know whether those are going to be like outrageous prices. People are just guessing. This is like a brand new economy where everyone's totally guessing whether something's worth 1 million gold or 50 million.
Yeah.
That's very
Not
smart
just-
to point out.
And not just a brand new economy, but an entirely new trade system to ARPGs in general.
Yeah.
So
Like, we don't. You're gonna spend all this gold on it. It's like, well, the only frame of reference that I have right now is currently in Last Epoch with the inflated gold gain per corruption. You know, the system that's going away. So like, my information's already wrong, but my current information is I can make about 1 million gold in one day, and that's getting nerfed. I will make less gold in a day in 1.0. So like, I guess you could think about your 2LP Twisted Heart, like 2LP Twisted Heart is a pretty hard thing to get. That's really lucky. It's a really strong item. How many days of effort do I think that's worth to somebody else?
Yeah, to be fair, that's the way trade works in PoE right now.
Yeah, and the biggest problem that I have brought up multiple times with currently there's a developer. His name is Muffin Man, and he's on the LE developer team. And he used to work for Blizzard, and he used to work for the economy for WoW, and now he's working on the LE economy. And I've asked him multiple times, like at this point, I was like, what is going to be the gold sink? Because right now, as it currently stands, in my humble opinion, I don't know how you feel about this, Perry, but I don't think the Lightless Arbor is going to be good enough. Now, maybe there might be enough gold inflation where there's so much gold that I could do like 20 Lightless Arbors in a row, like stuff like that. But like right now, as it currently stands, there's not that much to delete gold other than Stash Tabs and Lightless Arbor. And if there's not anything else, I don't know how that's going to affect. But the thing is, it's like it'll be a cycle. Right, so at least you delete the gold at the end of the season, right? So
right, then you learn and then you change things from there. We talked a while ago about like differences between Path of Exile and Last Epoch, and like for better or for worse, they chose a different route. Man, one of the really nice things, and I don't know how the rest of the community feels about this, but I still love the fact that Path of Exile chose not to do gold and that it's crafting materials, because it's such an elegant system for removing money from the economy because you craft with it. That's an amazing
everything
system.
has an actual
it's so
use.
good. But like gold, you know, so my like Last Epoch 0.9.2 account right now, I've got like 25 million gold sitting there. But like it literally means nothing. There's nothing to do with it. I could never spend that.
Yeah.
I could delete it, I guess, but like it doesn't do anything.
Like the only reason you'd want gold is to buy other more expensive items in the trade, but then like that other person that's selling that item, like what is he going to use the gold for, right? There's
to buy other more expensive items, I guess.
Like it just starts building on itself. And by the way, if you don't know, you will not be able to buy crafting materials. You cannot buy Glyphs of Despair, Runes of Creation, Glyphs of Hope. You will not be able to buy crafting materials. You have to source them yourselves. Now, one of the main ways...
very sadly can't trade them to your friends either.
Yeah. And you could use Lightless Arbor to get a bunch of Glyphs of Despair and stuff like that. But
which
at that point,
is a very easy thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. But that might be the way to go. But like, then like, I don't know. Like, this is like a lot of I don't knows.
It'll be fun. It's going to be really fun to see how the economy works out. Like, I'm going to be COF, of course, but seeing what people choose to do, like what the prices happen, like what the complaints are about Merchants Guild. If you're like writing a dissertation on like online economies or something, or like economies of scale, this would be such a fun thing to observe over like the next month. Absolutely.
It's going to be fun to make videos on it. Like I said, that's why I'm going MG first.
I'm also going to be real interested in how they change it moving forward after the first season.
Yeah, totally.
That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're asking for like additional gold sinks, it seems to me like the gold sink is the fact that you lose all the value of an item once you purchase it. So if you buy something that you only use temporarily, or you buy a bunch of legendary potential items in order to make the item that you want, and then you fail getting the stats on them that you want, you can't resell them, even if they turn out to be usable, but just not the one that you wanted. You're still going to be ending up having them rot in the stash because you can't resell them. So that's what you all need all the additional gold for, is to buy more and more.
You could probably sell it to the vendor for like at least 25 or 26 gold.
Fair. So, you can recoup a small percentage of it.
Vergog actually made a good point again, by the way, in that video we were talking about this specific thing. Is the problem with an auction house is what you just explained, is it centralizes the gold. So like, for instance, the gold starts moving up, right? It starts moving up as people sell and buy and stuff. There's a natural like flow where the gold is starting to coalesce into bigger and bigger piles in specific people's accounts, right? If that makes sense. And the problem is, what happens when that reaches a tipping point, right? Like, what happens when there's one player that has like 60 billion gold and can just like mine on everything ever?
But that's the thing. There's no reason to do that because they can't resell them.
Well, I mean,
they could just be trolling the other players.
I mean, that was about
Just
to
empty
say
the market.
Yeah. Like,
that person gets to have the most powerful gear for their character, but there's no reason for them to buy more than that. Yeah, okay. You could just be like, fuck you,
That does sound funny.
People do that all the time in PoE, man. Like, it happens.
Imagine like sitting on your computer. It's like, I've got 60 billion gold. I'm gonna buy every single Twisted Heart that pops up. Just to mess with everyone else.
I made the mistake once in PoE that I did a private league with an economy with prize money on like the first Cirrus kill or Uber Cirrus kill, and the guy who actually won the kill did not only buy the mana reservation jewels for himself, but he also bought all the other ones on the market, so that no one else could compete with him.
Yeah. So like for instance, it reminds me of that meme that Ziggy made, where he was like, oh, how do I make another chrome item? Let me just take a mirror and make a new chrome item. Like, I could very well see someone trolling the absolute fuck out of the community. It's like, oh, like, hey, Dreadful posted a new video about a build that, like, you know, like, he uses, like, a 2LP twist art, and it looks OP as balls. Let me just, like, click, and then all of a sudden there's no more. Now, in that situation, that actually might be cool, because then it opens up a market, right? To sell things, so if you pay attention.
Maybe I should go find
As it currently stands, there is no planned PoE Ninja or economy or anything like that. We will have the auction house. There's no planned third-party tools yet or anything of that ilk. So I will not be able to just type up PoE Ninja and be like, all right, what's the most expensive beast, or what's the most expensive thingamabobber, like whatever it ends up being, right? Like, what's the most expensive unique item for me to go farm, right? What's a niche I can?
Is it Twisted Heart?
I mean, it might be.
It's probably like, Twisted Heart.
But like, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff like wrong warps too, right? Like, there's other stuff. But like, my problem is without that, it might actually be a disservice to new players significantly, because Perry and I, we know what the good stuff is, right? Like, we've been playing for a long time. But if you're a new player, since even without PoE Ninja, that actually powers you down as a player, because now, like, the PoE Ninja is like the great equalizer in that regard. Because, like, for instance, if I knew Path of Exile and I want to like farm something for money, I can just look it up on PoE Ninja. But like, and like the Uber player, like the really like high tier player, right? They already know what all the good stuff is, but at least I can just go look at this website and gain all this knowledge. And as it currently stands, we won't have that for LE, right? So I'm going to get like, can you price check my item? Can you price check my item? Can you price check my item, Dread? We're going to get a lot of that, by the way.
I'm going to send them all to you. So by the way, Dread does free price checks. He's playing Merchant's Guild.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how the all sort of settles, like where everything finds its equilibrium in the new league and in the new state of the game on release, obviously.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I actually like Torchlight Infinite for this, because they actually implemented their own price check feature into the game, where you can just like click on an item and look for the price on the market just in game. I hope that eventually we might get something like that for PoE. I mean, LE, well, PoE too, obviously. But for LE, we get something like that where, like, you know, where I can just click on this item, be like, hey, like, what is this worth? I'm like, oh, wow, this is a really expensive item. Now, of course, they could look it up in the market and stuff like that. But like, how are they going to do that for every single item they ever drop without like you've played like with the PoE companion, right? With the price checking tool. Imagine playing without that. It would be awful, right?
Yeah. Yes, I have no idea how this is going to work out. There's going to be certainly chaos in the first couple of days. Anarchy.
Yeah.
Listen,
You're assuming we even get into the game, though. That's the problem right now.
Oh my god, we'll get in the game.
I mean,
It's
surely,
fine. The
surely,
queue will be
dude.
fine. The server.
They purposefully set the release date on a Wednesday so that by the time that the weekend comes around, everyone is able to play.
Why? You think that's why?
That's
I have no
meta.
idea.
Day of the week
That's
for
been the
1.0
new
launch.
meta. That's literally been the new meta, Perry.
Really?
People will literally launch their games in the middle of the week because they're like, too many people are playing.
Like launch.
I mean,
launching on a
I
Tuesday
schedule my
morning?
podcasts to start at 11 p.m. GMT so that by the time it's quarter past, we actually are ready to start.
So like the problem is right, is the way it works is you get a very large amount of people day one and then it trickles off and trickles off and trickles off, right? Well, what if we
depends,
do it on
honestly.
Wednesday? Yeah, what if we do it on Wednesday, get a decent amount of people, but then Friday when everyone's off work, bam, another resurgence, right? Instead of having one really, really big pile, we have like two mid-sized
You
piles.
know, you're actually right about this.
Yeah,
This is the
that's
same
why-
way that
yeah.
PoE dropped their last league 2 weeks before Christmas. Because normally after 2 weeks you get the first drop off, but in that case, after 2 weeks you get all the people who were only able to play after
And
Christmas holidays
it means
started.
significantly less stress on the servers in this regard, because like all you
Also-
nerds are at work, you get wrecked and they'll log in.
Okay,
Imagine
now,
making money.
I was thinking more about like having relatively stable player
Yeah,
numbers for
yeah.
the first period of time after release, rather than having like
Essentially,
a
they
real
just wanna
big peak
reduce
and then
the
a real
amount of-
sharp drop off.
It's funny that we're getting to this point where like too many people are playing our video game. We gotta stop it.
It's a real problem, though. It's a good problem
No.
to have, but it's a real problem.
In the short run,
Yeah,
it's
in
a
the short
problem for
term,
you
it
guys.
is,
In the
yeah.
long run, it's nothing but benefit because
Yeah.
that means more money coming their way. More money means better server infrastructure. I mean, I already heard that they did kind of go and splurge on infrastructure for this upcoming launch. So I'm hoping.
Well, I mean,
it's really hard though,
we-
right? Like you don't want to miss that calculation. You don't want to like overpay for capacity that you're not going to use, but you also don't want to have lacking capacity for all the people who want to play your new game, especially seeing that it's not a free to play game, but like all the people who are looking to play actually paid the $35.
That might help a lot, to be honest. That might be the great filter. Okay, I actually like that. I just realized that since you have to actually pay for the game, that might actually reduce the amount of people playing on day one. So
I mean,
it
at
might
least
not
in the
be in a
short
big
term.
problem. At least
At
in the
least in the short term,
yeah.
that mitigates. That
Yeah.
mitigates.
Well, what they'll do is I'll watch Asmongold, be like, "Oh, is this game good enough? All right, now I'll buy it." And maybe that will reduce the amount of people playing day one. Who knows? It's funny that we have to be like, "I want less people to play. I want less people to play."
Maybe we don't need less people to play because, like you said, because it is not a free-to-play game, but it is a pay-to-play game. Everyone that will be playing has at some point already paid for the server infrastructure that they are going to use, right? The capacity that needs to be accounted for. They've paid for it at some point, so it's probably a little bit easier for them to calculate.
But
than
we've
for
also
Path of
had
Exile.
leagues like Legion though too, where like trade was down for like 8 hours, even though the launch was really good. Like
Those are the best parts of Path of Exile.
like
Trade
like,
sites
even
down, you go to
PoE
global
is
chat.
like the best game on the market, like hands down still, right, in my opinion. And even they have problems sometimes, you know. Even Blizzard had problems too, right? Like even Blizzard had problems, and they should have enough money to like fix these problems, you would assume, right? So like it's just See,
Yeah.
Blizzard's not having server problems anymore.
I want to interject real quick.
Is that because no one's
Oh,
playing?
it's perfect that Baylor's back as well. I'm like, so we have our own podcast, Dread and I do, and as someone who hosts a podcast and periodically has notes as detailed as Catmaster does, I want to point out that we haven't talked about anything on the notes. Catmaster, is there something?
Well, we have talked about tons of things on the notes. We
talked
talked
about
about
one,
discovery and
didn't we?
mystery on release, biggest selling points. We talked about the factions. We went a little bit into gambling. We already did like 3 out of the 11 points.
All
at the
right,
very
fair
least.
enough. I want to offer this as an opportunity in case Catmaster wants to talk about something else. I feel like
one
we've been
big
rambling
thing
about
that I
economy.
want to talk about, especially because the topic has been brought up in the most recent interview with Jonathan from Grinding Gear Games, that the fellow content creator Woody Joe, how do you say that name, Woody Joe? Is it like pendejo, but like
I always
Woody?
just say Woody.
I
Woody,
don't
yeah,
know.
Woody. That's exactly what I did. Like I
thought it was
transitioned.
Woody,
I think we all call him Woody right at this point. I think we
Yeah.
all call him Woody.
Anyway, Woody did a really nice interview with Jonathan, and the topic of in-game item filters came up, which is, I think, a nice joint topic between this Last Epoch podcast and the current development in regards to PoE news. Well, let's just talk about the item filter in Last Epoch. For those people who don't know in chat, Last Epoch has a very simple item filter. The item system is very similar to other ARPGs, similar to Path of Exile as well, in the sense that there's normal items, there's magic items, there's rare items. Then on top of that, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, right, there's unique items, and then there's unique items with the legendary potential that we already brought up,
You can't
which
filter
is essentially...
between those, by the way.
Sorry?
Yeah.
You can't
can't
filter
filter them.
between those right now.
Oh, right. Okay, so they're the same thing in terms of...
You have to look at every single one on the ground, whether you like it or not.
Because you never know whether it has LP or not. Okay.
Yeah.
That is... I did not know that. That is unfortunate, and that's something that I
Oh,
hope
trust
will
me, I
change.
know. Someone else didn't know that either. Above
It was me. I'm sad.
I
Yeah,
had
bet.
the red pill baler so hard the other day.
Nah,
'cause-
I've still fixed that since then.
Oh, you have? Because
Yeah.
like what happened was right now in LE, Perry knows this. Not many items actually drop. The way it currently works in LE, before we talk about the item filter, is things like drop. Like you'll have like kill a pack and like 5 items will drop, and then your rarity will bump up the chance that those can be exalted. It's not like as if you'll have more quantity or anything like that. So you're not really filtering through many things, if that makes sense. So like you don't need like this 50,000 rule filter to play the video game properly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's not like in PoE where you actually can't play the game without a filter because you can't see the ground.
But I got real excited about making like a big in-depth filter. And then I was like, oh, I still need to ask a few questions. I'm going to get Dread on Discord to ask a few questions about it. And it turns out you need like 6 rules. And then you can just
I served him the biggest red pill ever. I'm just like, Taylor, what are you filtering? These are the items on the ground. I'm at 300 corruption. This is like the end game, quote unquote, right? There's like 5 items on the ground. Like,
Yeah. So
what are you filtering?
since then, I built out my own filter that's about 4 times that long. That took probably 45 to an hour to make instead of the 3 minutes it takes to make yours. And I would say it's about 5 to 10% better. But it required way more knowledge and like an hour to write instead of 3 minutes.
But you
and
feel
it's
good about it, right?
5% better.
Like you're happy, right? Like that's
Yeah,
that's
I'm
good.
happy because that's what I want to do with
accomplishment.
filters. But
Yeah.
but what you don't need a good one. You just need some basic information.
I just wanted to give some context to this whole thing before we
Yeah.
talk about item filters, by the way.
Yeah.
People obsess over it way too much.
Well, there's a quick interjection here from chat because you just mentioned that you can't. The item filter doesn't distinguish between uniques with LP and without LP. How many uniques do you find in an average end game instance?
One,
Is it
2.
one a map, maybe 2, yeah.
okay? So it's not that much of a problem to hover over every single one.
Like I said, like going up in content does not increase quantity. All it does is increase rarity. So like there's not more items dropping, just the items on the ground just drop with better rarity. And we all know how useless rarity is in PoE for the most part. So
I mean, Rarity's pretty good in Last Epoch.
I
like
think
it.
it's
I know,
way
I
better
know.
here.
I know it is.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah. Rarity's way better than LA.
So and
Speaking of the loot filter in Last Epoch, I love talking about it, so I'm just gonna jump in.
go for it.
It's awesome. It's just it's definitely one of like the selling points of the game, and it's not like a flashy selling point of the game. So like the combat feels good, or the monsters are cool, or the abilities are cool. It's like the loot filter. You really got to play with the loot filter. In case anyone out there is also an IT professional, or at least used to be, it's literally a firewall. If you've ever made a firewall, it's set up the exact same way. It's like,
Oh my god, it is.
it is. It's literally a firewall. It's beautiful in its simplicity.
I never
Yeah.
made that connection.
That's
I've never
exactly
set up
what
a
it is.
firewall.
Oh man, well, you could basically be one after playing Last Epoch. But yeah, like you can delete all Like you can do a hide all items, like hide all items, and then like a rule on top of that, show exalted items. That's 90% of your end game loot filter right there. You don't need much more than that. You can make it better. You can make a good leveling filter. You can hide the idols you don't want to see. You can highlight the idols that have health on them. You can recolor stuff. If you're only going to use two-handed axes, you could hide all other base types other than two-handed axes. And then on top of that, you can do show all exalted items. So if there's an exalted two-handed sword, you're still going to see it because that supersedes it. Because like it's a rule like visually on top of it. It's so good. And there are so many people who come to Last Epoch from Path of Exile, and I feel like a lot of what I do as a content creator for Last Epoch is like an emotional support for people who are coming over from Path of Exile. They're like, do I need a build guide? No, like it's okay. Don't worry about it. Do I need Neversink? Neversink's a really nice guy. You don't need him. It's okay. Like do I need a loot filter? You can do it yourself. You're fine. You don't even need a loot filter, and you can like it's a couple hours in the game, you'll realize you might want one. Like it's okay. It's the loot filter is really, really intuitive once you look at it for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be clear here, you could perfectly fine just play the entire game, get your character to the max, and like finish all the encounters without ever adjusting your loot filter.
You'll get to a point where you realize, hey man, I really wish I had, necrotic resistance, and then you'll open up the loot filter and be like, what is this thing? It's like, oh, highlight items that have necrotic resistance, and that's a great start. And then you just build it out from there. It's not.
I don't think you could play the whole game without ever opening the loot filter menu. I do think that people are going to be very worried when they open the loot filter menu because there are no rules in it and it's scary to look at. But once you've spent, even if you're just a casual, non-degenerate gamer of any kind, you play like a few hours a week of video games and you don't know what you're doing, and from PoE you think, oh my god, loot filters, this is insane, because it is in PoE. You spend 10 minutes the first time looking at how it works and it explains itself to you. Like it's just there and it all makes sense.
Yeah. And once you put in those 10 minutes, you're gonna feel empowered. You're gonna feel like, thank God I put in those 10 minutes, because it's really not that hard.
My explanation for this, the way I put it, whenever someone asks me about loot filters, because oh my god, is it like one of the biggest questions I ever get? It's like, can I have a loot filter for this build? Can I have a loot filter for this build? Dread, can I have a loot filter? Right? That's like always. I'm like, dude, watch this 10-minute video. I swear to God, just watch it. I don't care if you skip through it. I don't care. Just watch it and understand what it's trying to say. And from now on, whenever you need a filter, it'll take you 5 minutes at most to make one, and you're good to go. Okay.
You can make it 3 by creating a template and then just being like, okay, I'll start from this template.
Yeah, I do exactly. That. Yeah, I do that too, and I plan on doing that for 1.0. But yeah, like all you need to know is what are you looking for, and the problem is they never meet me halfway in that regard. It's like you got to do the research into what you want. It's like, oh well, I don't know what I want. Well, that's part of the game, man.
Or I can approach that a different way. For new players, yeah, it's way easier to just tick everything on the loot filter and then go, okay, what are the things that I don't want? You'd be like, well, I'm a magic user, so I don't care about increased attack speed, melee damage, melee flat. You just start unticking things that are irrelevant to you, and you can make it stricter later when you figure out what you do want.
But if you like, don't you still want good melee items if you're like a caster?
I can explain that. No? So when you are in the end game, my biggest tip is when you're looking at exalted items. This is where it matters. So, for instance, if you're playing an end game and you're playing like a sorcerer and you're doing you're doing ignite or whatever, right? You're like, oh well, I want to play like a melee build in the future or something like that. When you're looking at exalted items, pick up the ones that are useful, right? Like keep them, put them in your stash. As long as you do that, you will never have a problem with that. Because exalted items are the end game crafting stuff. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine.
Okay, so just because I expect some people listening won't have played Ellie at all, or will have played like a tiny amount, I'm going to quickly. This isn't everything in depth, just what's an exalted item. So tiers of everything that can be crafted in this game are just tier 1 to 5. It's the reverse of what you expect from PoE. Tier 1 is the lowest tier. Tier 5 is the highest tier. However, you can also have tier 6 and tier 7 items, like rolls on items, but those are drop only. So you craft around the good higher level than you could normally craft, drop to item. Those are called exalted items. Most filters are just going to show all exalted items, at least to begin with. So if you were like the kind of, what they're saying here is like, if you're like, oh, I'm playing a mage, but I'm planning on making a melee build next, you still wouldn't set up your loot filter to show melee gear. You would just set it up to continue showing exalted items. And then you would pick up, oh, there's that one-handed sword that's got flat melee fizz on it. That might work for my next build. Those exalted items also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think have higher forging potential.
Yes.
You can craft
Yeah.
on them more
The
as
higher
well.
the higher rarity, the more forging potential. That's why they're really good in in-game, because not only do they have really good affixes, they also let you craft on them more.
Yeah. So while at the beginning you might have normal rare items showing for your current build, you're never going to have normal rare items like specifically filtered for your next build. Your next build, you're going to pick up exalted items off the floor and be like, yo, that could be usable for my next build. I'll put that away. Right. So that's an important thing.
And then
So it essentially answers my
47
question.
stash tabs full of random exalted items because I love hoarding.
Mhm.
Yeah, perfect.
Mhm. That's what
And
your
the
stash tabs
exalted
should be used for.
stats, you can also get the exalted stats onto the legendaries with
Yes.
the LP.
Yes,
okay.
we can talk about
so
that.
the
It's not deterministic. It's just 1 in 4, 2 in 4. It's random. Yeah.
yeah. But I was like previously thinking you would want to use rares for that, but obviously you only use exalted items
Yeah.
ever for
So-
that.
So
Exalted items are rares.
Yeah, exactly.
Drop
but with the
only
drop only
higher
highest tier.
yeah, so the way it works currently, to put it in Diablo 4 terms, is when you are going through your world tiers and you're dropping like what are they called? It's like ancestral and like what's the other ones? Like I can't remember. It's like there's like different like tiers of items, right? You're like, oh, I'm dropping this tier of item in this world tier 3, right? And as soon as you get to world tier 4, you ditch all of that gear and you go for like ancestral gear. It's the same thing here, but instead of moving on from just random rare items on the ground, like normal rare items, you want to move on to exalted, because not only do they have better stats, they also have better crafting ranges for forging potential, which is the most important part.
Do one of you two, because I might get it wrong, so I'm not as experienced as you two, want to like very quickly just give a TLDR of how that legendary potential works with exalted items, so that people know what we're talking about when we talk about that.
Go ahead.
Like how you would put one
Yeah.
on, how that functions.
How do you make a legendary item?
Isn't it like an
As-
endgame map,
as
like
you-
the Forge of the Titans in Crucible?
Yeah, so you will find items on the ground that So you're gonna find unique items on the ground, and you're gonna have like all unique items show, and some of them are gonna have like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or 4 next to them, and you're gonna start scratching your head like, what on earth does this mean? So any unique item, most unique items can have 1, 2, 3, or 4 legendary potential. And what that means is if you take it to the oven, you can randomly put 1, 2, 3, or 4 stats from a corresponding exalted item onto that unique item. So you're adding extra affixes. There's a couple interesting things that go into it, but let me tell you what the oven is first. I said the LP oven, you put it in the oven. The oven is my colloquial term for the eternity cache, which is the reward for successfully completing the temporal sanctum, which is one of the 4 dungeons in the game. So the
And
LP
also
system,
quite easy to run.
Yeah. So the LP system was a tie-in. It is a tie-in to the dungeon system. You go in the temporal sanctum. You need a key. Put the key in. You do the dungeon. You kill the boss, and then you have access to the eternity cache. If you want to do a low-level item, you can do a low-level dungeon. If you want to do a high-level item, you got to do the high-level dungeon in order to access the appropriately powerful easy bake oven. So in the easy bake oven, you put your exalted item in. You put your unique item in, and then you click go, and whatever happens.
Yeah.
If you have a 4 LP item, it's literally an item printer, because you have 4 affixes, and you're randomly adding 4 of the affixes onto your unique item. So of course it just takes all 4. So 4 LP is totally insane.
Yep.
Also
And-
incredibly rare.
Very, very, very rare. I would not expect it.
The rules that govern the system is you can utilize the same type of item. So let's say I have a 2-handed sword. I can use any other exalted two-handed sword to slam onto my legendary potential item as long as it has 4 affixes. It has to have the 4 affixes first, right? But if I want to slam my 2 LP mace, I need a 2 LP two-handed mace, right? Like I need that. And what's important here, and this is very important to understand because new players will come in and be like, "Oh my god, this item's like really good affixes, but it's on a terrible base, right? Like on a really low base." Well, it turns out you don't care about the base when it comes to exalted items if you're not going to be wearing it. Because if you have like a level 1 hat that has T7, like it has like +4 to static orb, right? But like you never want to wear it because it has like 20 flat armor on the base. You keep that and you use it to slam into the legendary item later on because you lose the base, you gain the new base by the unique. So that is why exalted hoarding is such a problem in Last Epoch right now.
The one other point that I think is really, really cool, but won't matter for the league start. When you do this, when you slam an item with a rare item or the exalted item onto your unique, it doesn't change the level at all. Which does mean for alts, you can get like these like level 5 weapons and put like level 80 affixes on top of it. And then your alt leveling process could be disgustingly fun.
That was a very recent change, by the way. Before, it would take the new item requirement of the affixes you put on the item, which was absolutely awful, by the way. The new system is so much better because like now you can do a leveling alts.
Being OP while leveling is a very safe thing for a developer to let me do.
Yeah,
let me be
so
OP
weird.
while leveling, please.
It's so weird that like that's such a big problem. I'm like, if I'm playing my second character, why can't I just juice it up?
Don't let me be super OP on a league start. Yeah. Sure, make me struggle, make me get through whatever. That's fine. My ults, no. Let me obliterate everything. Let me run at Mach 10 and one-shot everything while I'm leveling. It'll be fun. I'll enjoy it. I'll make more ults. It's great.
True. If I want to make my stupid 4 LP Parthenon's Vow and like dominate the game with it, let me do so.
You dominate the first 20 minutes of gameplay. You just dominate it.
Like I've already done the work. I've already got high level characters. I've already found the uniques. I've already slammed stuff into them. I've made leveling gear. Just let me be OP.
Yeah, it's a good system.
Just be OP. Great.
So much better.
Yeah.
Would you guys have been fine with the game not having an item filter editor at all?
No.
No.
I mean, like the thing is, not many items drop, but it would just like we used to not have an item filter, and those were dark times. So
yeah,
like not having an item filter in an ARPG, it's a bad call.
You can so items drop identified, and this is a big difference from Path of Exile, right? Because you don't have the scroll of identity, ID scroll, whatever it's called.
That's fair to point out.
Yeah, so items drop identified already, and you have fewer items that drop. And honestly, if you didn't have a loot filter, you would get to the point where like Dread and I are right now. You kind of know what an item's going to have on it based on its name. So you can have the full name, like a shortened name, or like the Giga short name where it shares no information with you. But like, so the prefix, like it has prefix and suffixes like Path of Exile. The prefix Mercurial means it has movement speed on it, and the suffix of health or of the giant, those are both health related suffixes. So if you see like a pink, which is like the pink is like the default color for an exalted item. If you see a pink item on the ground that has, Mercurial boots of health, you're like, oh, it's either got exalted health or it's got exalted movement speed. Both of those are great. Let me go hover my mouse over it.
Oh, okay. So the drop only mod is always one of the two that is mentioned in prefixes or suffixes. Because rare items.
I don't think I've ever had dev confirmation about it, but I think it's like 95%. If it's untrue, it's incredibly uncommon. It's not, but it sure seems like it.
It feels like that's true, but I also don't know.
I've never asked, but it really seems like that's true.
It's never mattered. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because I was gonna wonder like how does the game decide which of the affixes are implemented.
I'll be honest, I turned on the short names like 5 minutes into the new loot. I use short names 5 minutes into the new loot filter.
I love the medium name. Medium names are so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Well-
that's weak filters.
like the reason I'm asking whether you would have been fine with no filter editor in the game is, like I said earlier, there was an interview recently where a Path of Exile developer was asked, will there be, even if only rudimentary, like small options in game, wouldn't it be cool if we could adjust item filters in game? And they concluded that they would rather not have something like that in the game. They pretty much gave the same reasoning as to the graphics settings as the logout timer, right? Where they said if that was in the game, then it would give people who watch streamers or who play for the first time the feeling that that's something that they have to do. But philosophically speaking, well, am I right in assuming that you say that PoE should also have an in-game item filter editor?
I mean,
it's
at this
way more
point-
complicated with way more items than
Yeah,
Last
at this
Epoch is.
point,
Like it works for Last Epoch because it was built from the ground up with that intent, right?
like with Last Epoch, it's not complicated enough to like merit that, because right now in the end game, when I'm playing in the end game, all I got to do is just show exalted items and uniques, and I'm good to go, right? And for a simple filter, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think
Taylor.
maybe a larger reason why it works here is because we're not identifying things. We're
Yeah.
filtering from mods, not filtering base items. Like
Mhm.
PoE has like, I want to guess 45 times as many base items, and the base item is significantly less relevant, but you can't see the stat anyway. So like
Yeah.
doing filters in game in PoE would be insane.
That's a great difference between Last Epoch and Path of Exile too. So the places where your base type matter the most, and this is me playing Path of Exile 3 years ago, but the places where your base type matters most is like an energy shield build, right? Like you want the best bases, you want the highest ES, maybe you want armor because you're using Aegis Aurora or something, but that's where your base type really matters because those are the stats that matter most for you. That's the kind of base types that you have for every gear slot in Last Epoch. Base types are very important to Last Epoch.
Very
They're
good, by the
a
way.
lot.
Very good base types. Like insane. Like absolutely insane. Like your build can go from 0 to 100 like very quickly based on the kind of base item you have. And that really makes the exalted thing really interesting because like half the time whenever you're looking at exalted, you have to think of not only the affixes, what these affixes would be good for, what build these affixes would be good for. You also have to think, well, is this LP bait? Can I like throw it on an LP, or do I use this to craft for my own self? Right? You have all these kind of things every single time you look at an exalted item. It's not like Path of Exile where it's like, oh, shink, like you see like a, I don't know, like a replica Alberons or something, right? It's like, oh, I need to like look at this item and evaluate its value every single time I click on it, essentially, right now. And even if like you manage to like filter everything, like that would take hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's fair. So, I just feel like, and look, I'm not trying to like call the PoE developers out or like give them shit for not designing
okay,
the
I
game
am.
in the way that I would like it. Because for me personally, I couldn't care less whether there's an item filter editor in game. I just think, based on the fact that they're looking to cast a wider net, increase their player base, lure in people who are maybe not naturally affiliated with the ARPG genre, get more of the casual audience, then I feel like it's a wrong conclusion to think that we don't need an item filter editor in game. Sure, there's always going to be the people who want to use Filter Blade for absolute min-maxing, but if there's just one specific item that I'm looking for and I just want to add an exception to the filter, I just want to do that without alt tabbing, and I don't really understand why they have such a firm stance on not wanting to. I mean, I understand, but
I think the biggest problem is with, like I said, with Last Epoch, they did it from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
They did it from the start. With the Path of Exile, they definitely did not do it in the start. And
yeah, it's a necessity that arose later.
It's more like
insane creep.
It's more like, let's put it like this. Would you want to make it would you want to go through and put in the thousands and hours of man hours that it would require to do that? Like, would you want to go through the thousands of hours of man hours that would take to like make trade better? Like a lot of these kind of things, like you got to think of it from their perspective. It's like, what is actually worth our time and what is not? What can we get away with not doing? What can we not get away with not doing? Right? Like for instance, recently,
that is a completely different topic though, because if they were to say, if Jonathan had said, I would really like this in the game, but there's so many other things that we need to prioritize over this. It's unlikely that it will get made. It's a completely different answer to saying what he said, where he says, I philosophically don't want that to be in the game, which is the point where I disagree and where I'm like, if I was a dev on that game, then I would like to see it in there. And the resource allocation is a completely different topic.
I have a perfect foil for that. So right now at Last Epoch, we cannot edit the sounds of our filter. Okay?
Yeah.
We cannot add sounds. And I've asked time and time again about sounds for filters, and they said, we do not want to do this. We do not want to do this. It would be easy to do so. We do not want to do it. And I feel like as though sometimes you just run into that situation where it's like, it's their boat and we're riding it. And this is like one of those cases, and like Ellie has that case all the time too, where it's like, it'd be nice if we could have sounds. Like, I miss my shinks, man. Like, I miss my dings.
They don't have sounds at all, or
they do, but they're terrible. I'll be honest, they're just terrible.
Okay, well, that's just a matter of hiring a good sound designer and doing like an obscene amount of sounds.
I would like to be able to make my own, right? Like, I can already make this filter exactly what I want. Why not give me the ultimate? Like, I want to hear Gachi Muchi when I'm like dropping a bunch of exalted items. Please, just let me do it.
I am so happy that they're not allowing custom sounds for exactly that reason. When I go to somebody's stream and then a bunch of like,
they're not against sound options. They are against custom sounds.
Yes,
so
I would like some
just give us better bass sounds, and I wouldn't care. Like, give us like equivalent bass sounds, like PoE, where like when I hear like
like a clink and a swing and
I've been here.
Let me choose the clinks and swings.
Okay, I am literally like an addict that can't get his fix because he's playing Last Epoch. That is literally why I go back to play PoE every.
You want the exalt drop sound?
I want the divine drop sound. Yes, I want that back.
Swing. It's a beautiful sound effect.
Give me something like that. I'll be honest right now. I turn off my volume for the game. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to sounds. I don't listen to anything. Right now, that would make me turn on my item filter sounds or whatever, is so I could hear that.
You should take that sound effect and make it like your follow notification or like sub notification.
No, I actually like my follow notification. It's my favorite song. But yeah, it's just like if they are going to not let us make custom filter sounds, just make us give us an option, like a few options, and give me a loud dong. Okay, I want a loud dong.
The one or two other things that I want out of their thing is I don't think there are enough colors. I would like to have more color options.
Give me triple the colors, please.
There's like an emphasize that like capitalizes it, but it doesn't change the size. I wish there was like
it capitalizes, and sometimes it bugs out too, where it like hides the text.
A size thing too, like,
even if it wasn't a slider, it was just like, here's a small one, a medium one, and a large one, and that's it. Totally that would be fine.
Yeah, I also don't like the current state of the hiding in the like the highlighting the filter, because like constantly I'll see people on stream be like, I can't see items. Why can't I see items? I'm like, press Alt Z. It's Alt Z. Just press Alt Z.
You want to make that worse? Real quick. I play with a controller.
Yeah.
This button right here opens the portal. Problem. This opens a portal, right? This button, I can't rebind it. It opens a portal. It's stuck there. It's bound there. If I hold this button for 1/4 of a second, it's the hotkey to turn off all loot. And there's no way to rebind that either. They're both locked. I ran about 8 maps thinking, the fuck did I do to my filter? Why is there no gear on the floor? I turned off every single tooltip because I held the portal button for 1/4 of a second and it just turns loot off.
Skill diff.
Yeah, just use a PlayStation controller.
Anyway, yeah, there's some little growing pains with the controller, but we won't get into that.
Well, is there any other like common pitfalls or
We could go on this
things
for
that-
hours. Oh,
Man.
go ahead, Perry. You can start it.
Common
like
pitfalls.
things to look out for new players, right?
Oh my God, acid
What's-
flask.
Oh, I was like,
I mean, that's just
Man.
skills. Like, there's more than that.
How about I'll take resistances. That's a good
Yes.
one.
That's one of my
Because
favorites.
it's such a good difference, and it's a mathematical difference. Ooh, I can draw charts for this too. Resistances in Path of Exile as opposed to Last Epoch. I get the percentages mixed up, but bear with me for a second. The difference, okay, the TLDR is that in Path of Exile, if you have uncapped resistance, you're asking to die. In Last Epoch, having uncapped resistance is completely fine. It's okay. Don't worry.
I constantly have characters at like 69, like 70, 71, like
60, 65, whatever.
I can give the really quick math for that if you want. I know it.
I know
Is
the
it
relative
math
differences. Yeah, if you know the math
different?
offhand, tell me.
So basically, TLDR, your endgame mobs are built to penetrate 75 resistance by default, which is also the cap, which means the balance of this game is set around you having an effective 0 resistance. So 100 fire damage gets done to you and you take 100. So if you're missing 25 resistance, you take 125 damage instead of 100 damage, which is an increase of 25% more damage.
Right.
Which is manageable. In PoE, they don't have pen by default. You have 75 by default. It's balanced around dealing 25 damage to you when it deals 100. And if you're missing 25 resistances, you take 50 damage instead of 25 for each 100 dealt, which is double. So in Last Epoch, you're missing 25 res, you take 25% more damage. In PoE, you're missing 25 res, you take 100% more damage.
Perfect description.
It's a
Love it.
big difference.
Eloquently put.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like
a
if
big
you
one.
if you got 60 res, like you want 75 res, but if you have 60,
I can
Yeah, it's fine.
I can do the next pitfall.
go.
Go for
The
it.
only choice that matters, and I get this question all the time now because I make a lot of builds, right? What am I gonna play for 1.0, Dread? What am I gonna play? Well, the only choice that matters is what mastery you choose. You can take a druid and play whatever druid build you want within like 20 minutes of respecking, as long as you have the gear, right? As long as you have the gear, it takes like maybe 10 to 15 minutes in endgame to respec your character. So essentially, all that matters in the endgame is which mastery you choose. So for instance, if you choose like a Blade Dancer, you could play every single Blade Dancer build under the sun. Like, it's so easy to respec, it's not even funny. But if you want to play a marksman, if you're like, oh, I want to play a marksman, well, guess what? You got to level a new character. That is the only thing that matters. You could play like a really uber fast leveling build, right, to like level 70, 80, whatever, right, all the way to empowers. There's plenty of builds that are like that, right, that are just templates that just get you to the end game, right, and even farther. All that matters is what mastery you choose, right? So for instance, if you're like playing a shaman and you choose a shaman and you want to play a different build, well, you're screwed. If you're playing like a beastmaster, right, you have like 20 different beastmaster builds to choose from. Like, you have like a smorgasbord of opportunities, right? That is the only thing that matters, is what
the
mastery
point
you
is,
choose.
yeah, the mastery is the only thing you can't change. Everything else can be changed. The mastery itself cannot be changed.
Yep. And that is
For
very
PoE
important to
people
know.
is your ascendancy, by the way. That's what they're calling.
And
Yeah, it's your sentence. Yep.
And the way it works in like Last Epoch right now, you can play a leveling build. Like, let's say like I want to play like Holy Trail up until level 80, right? And then swap into like Flameburst Warpath or whatever. That is very easy to do. You do not have to worry about respecking or anything like that. That is a very easy thing to do. You don't have to worry about respecking. You don't have to worry about regret orbs. You don't have to worry about any of that. It is very easy to respec into anything else you want after leveling for a bit, right? It's a small little growing pain where you get your skills leveled up, but like you can play like because like I'll have plenty of people come to me like, hey, Dread, like I want to play the build that I want to level as. Well, like I'll be honest with you, buddy. Like swipe from levels 1 to 20 sucks. Play something else, right? And they're like, well, like they're from Path of Exile. And they're like, well, that would be impossible in PoE, right? Because I'd have to completely change my respecking and all that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd have to get like all the regret points and all that. Well, Last Epoch, that's not a problem. You just respec as soon as you're able to, and it's so much easier.
It costs gold to respec. It's a laughably low amount of gold.
Yeah.
It might as well be free.
It might as well cost 0 gold.
Yeah, to completely revamp an entire character from level 100, it would take about maybe 300k gold or something like that, in like maybe 10 minutes of your time.
Well, it may be worth noting at this point that unlike with Path of Exile, when you do respec the skills and the skill specializations, you do need to play a little bit to regain the points in the skill specialization tree, right? After you refund them, you don't instantly have them back in order to... Yeah, but it's important to note. Because
actually,
you got like a fully specialized skill with like 20 points into it, and you're like, okay, but I could get the other side of the tree and get this or that.
Actually, streamer, there's ways around that. You can
Really?
You can actually have 0 downtime if you plan out correctly. So while you're doing your Monolith of Fate, some of the echo rewards are tomes of experience. So imagine, close your eyes. Let me take you on a journey here, okay? You're playing Swipe, and you want to respec into Thorn Totem instead, okay? So you do the echo. You're killing monsters. You kill the boss. It says echo complete. You portal out, and then you stop. There's 3 tomes of experience sitting in front of you. Don't pick them up. You open up your skills, you respec your skills, you click into the new skill, and then you walk over those tomes of experience. You now have like a level 19 or maybe even a level 20 skill. Done. 0 downtime.
Yep.
That is... thanks for letting me know. I had no idea.
Oh, it's helpful.
It is. Although I've been told that the downtime is relatively low anyway.
It is.
It really only takes like 1 or
like,
2 zones to level them anyway, even if you don't do that.
The only problem is if you do it really early on, like level 5, it's kind of painful for a little bit.
Oh, that's a great like new player pitfall. What you're about to describe. Sorry, Dredd, keep going.
Yeah. So like so the problem is like really early on, you respec your main damaging skill. It feels awful for a while, I'll be honest. So that's why we talk about leveling builds up until like level 40-ish, because level 30, 40-ish is like when things start opening up, your specialization slots are all open. You get enough experience to re-level your skills, and you can like I'll be honest, after level 40, like the world is your oyster. You get to do whatever you want. But up until that point, I would definitely stick to one thing early on, because sadly, for some reason, I don't know why this is the case, but it's way harder to respec really early on than it is in endgame. Like in endgame, it's like completely pitiful. And then early on, like level 5, it's like a pain in the ass. So I don't know why that's the case. Like Baylor, you've played Torchlight Infinite. You've seen like the respec to level 80 thing, right? Like whenever you level to 80, like I don't understand why that's not the case. Like I would rather it be like that, but like I don't know. It's just like completely flopped from
they have the system. It's just off a little bit. The minimum level of skills. I think they need to like scale that a little bit harder during the like levels 1 to 40-ish.
And then go up. Yeah, like I think the way it should work is when you get a new skill, you should just get like whenever you unlock the skills, you should just get 3 points instantly, and that's your minimum. And then you go up, because whenever you respec a skill in the early game, at least you get 3 points to mess around with, right? I want to get to this point and see what this looks like. Well, now you have 3 points when you respec. I think that would be so much better, like so much better. I don't know why that's not the case. It's so weird.
In terms of new player advice, we often tell people like Last Epoch is new player friendly. You can experiment during the campaign. You can try all these different things. But if you want to be
level 5, not at level 5.
You still can. I would say like don't ever like unspec the current skill that you're using to kill monsters. Whatever is your primary source of damage, don't unspec out of that. Unspec out of your movement skill. Unspec out of something else instead, and use that skill slot to mess around with the new skill that you want to experiment with.
Yeah,
don't delete all of your damage. Don't do that.
Don't throw away your bike before you get a new one. Basically.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that's fair. Yeah, speaking of pitfalls for new players, any more that you want to bring up there, or any parallels? Is there any use for utilizing widescreen? Like, do you get any advantage like you do in Path of Exile? More vision?
Yeah, I hate it.
Are people doing that actually?
I hate it.
Yes, they are.
The real use case for this is doing arena. And arena is the competitive mode. It's like a ladder. You can be number one on the ladder if you really want to. For me, arena represents absolutely nothing because there's no reward, there's no loot, there's nothing.
It's just the ladder.
Literally nothing. It's only there to be rank 1, baby. If you're doing an arena, you currently have a competitive advantage if you play in windowed mode or with a wide monitor, play with like extra widescreen on, because you can see monsters sooner, and sometimes you can target them with projectiles faster.
Yeah.
technically
I
that
heard
is-
that arena is basically at the if you want to get the highest rank, it's basically a competition of who can off screen
So,
better.
the
Right? Who
problem
can kill the
with
most
arena-
monsters without ever seeing them on their
The,
screen.
the problem with arena, Dredd, tell me what's the
problem-
one singular problem with arena.
Well, the biggest problem, in my opinion, is we're trying to make a square peg fit in a round hole. We're trying to play an ARPG competitively. And sadly, due to the nature of an ARPG, where the nature is to break the game in a way, right, and not be fair, that's the whole point of it, to feel strong against the mobs. Like, you don't want to be fighting the mobs and be fair, right? You want to be unfair. You want to kill them all the way across the screen, or you want to be immune while doing it, or you want to do a gabillion damage to them, right? And thanks to that fact, it's an ARPG, and that's the way it is, right? It means that no matter what you do, no matter how you try, no matter how hard you try, there will be that one person that will find that one build that will literally completely change, like, that will completely be stupid. Like, for instance, in the current arena meta right now, the one that's at the top, I think, that used to be at the top at the time. This was like before all
it's
the
the Lich
Rune
build,
Masters took
yeah.
over. Well, other than the Lich build, this is a different one. There's a guy who would literally sit in the corner and hold rebuke down, which is like a defensive skill. You like sit there and it's like a turtle shell. Right? You just sit there and do it, and then let the minion do all the work for you. Right? That was the top arena build at the time. Right? And now the new top arena build is some Rune Master abuse, and then there's the Lich stuff, which is a bug. But like essentially, you're asking for the system to get broken, and you will never ever have a fair fight. You can never play fair. You have to abuse things. You can't be nice. Right?
On the
Sounds
other
like
hand,
Delve.
yeah, there's a lot of similarities with Delve. On the other hand, arena is sometimes fun. So if you want to compare yourself to yourself, and if you want to like see how this build compared to that build, or like maybe you personally want to get better at it, or maybe you're doing one of those short form weekend tournaments that are hopefully going to be returning, like these community run events that last like 2 or 3 days, those things are very fun, and those have all taken place in arena in the past. So like,
I just want to quickly at this point take the moment and say that I fundamentally disagree with what Dreadful just said.
Oh,
So-
really?
Like,
That's how it's been
I-
for the past few weeks, by the way.
No, I mean in general in ARPGs, what you said that you don't want to fight mechanically. Does that mean you really don't want to like circle around a blue pack of monsters for like 20 skill rotations? That is the fun of the game for me.
Well, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
know if
that's
you're
not-
kidding.
PoE2, by
I
the
don't
way.
know.
That's not what
clue
I'm
if you're
getting
kidding.
at. What I'm getting at is like, since it's an RPG and it will never be balanced in that way, right? There will never be a balance. There will always be something, like there will always be bullshit. Like you'll be like, oh my god, I'm pushing on my like Rive build and it's amazing, and then you just see like the manifest armor build like sitting in the corner like, oh, don't hurt me, and like you see him like push 3 times as many ways as you, right? Like there's always going to have that happen, and it's always going to disappoint people no matter what.
But the Rive build, when you're only getting to 300 or 400 waves in the arena playing Rive, this melee character that really doesn't have many defenses to it, that's a lot of adrenaline. Don't compare yourself to the guy doing manifest armor.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're comparing yourself to yourself, it is fun. There are good high adrenaline moments. You do get to learn the mechanics of the monsters. There is something there. It's fun.
It's
I
fun.
like it.
No, I think it's fun. I just think that you have to go into it with a different mentality, right, than like a normal competition, because there will always be the bigger fish.
Because someone's cheating.
Yeah. Or
Right.
not cheating, but like, you know.
Yeah.
Am I the only person that just heard Capmaster describe a fucking nightmare scenario that would make me want to quit
I
playing?
have no
as
idea
the
if he's kidding or not.
fun
That sounds
part of
miserable.
That's
playing games?
exactly
What
how high
the
tier arena
fuck?
works if you're playing fair. If you're playing fair, that's high tier arena, Baylor. You're
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
fair.
it is. It
He's
is.
like, Isn't the fun running around a blue pack of mobs for 20 skill rotation?
I was intentionally hyperbolic, but
No,
I do
that's
really
exactly how it
enjoy
works.
those situations in Path
Yeah,
of Exile
what
a
if-
lot. I mean,
what
I
if
am
the
someone who
entire
was
game-
the early adapter.
Maybe Catmaster is really going to enjoy Arena.
What
Like, just go-
maybe-
I
play
did
a-
enjoy Arena back when I
Go
played, but
play
I
a
didn't
fair,
like.
normal build. Yeah, you'll love
I
it.
love
It's
how
great.
Catmaster was just like, guys, I know this sounds crazy, but what if the entire end game of like Last Epoch, right? It was like mud flats over and over.
The entire end game on 1.0 is like Arena.
It was just mud flats over and over again.
Sounds like hell. I want to kill hundreds and thousands of mobs and obliterate them all. That's what I
Yeah.
want to do.
With zero effort.
I want the effort to be in building the character to get there, or designing it, or making choices, not in the like fighting the mob.
Yeah,
Oh, that's what Arena is like.
I
You
have
just
to
know
admit,
how
I
the
do
mobs-
like a struggle session.
Yeah.
Like
I
that.
think it's fine, but like I said, like you're gonna struggle for hours and hours and hours and get to like 200 waves, and you're gonna like watch this random guy doing liches. Like,
But you'll have fun.
yeah.
You'll literally
you'll
have fun.
Yeah. It's just,
Nah, I'm not doing Arena.
I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that like no matter how hard they try, the system will never be balanced. If they want to make Last Epoch fun, the system will never be balanced.
Good. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
I think
some people like that. You know, maybe
Yeah.
some people like pushing like 1,000 waves on like a build that like sits in the corner and like cowers. Maybe people just like not interacting with the enemies and like off screen them. Maybe they want to do that. That's fine. But like I said, don't expect a balanced experience ever.
Hot take: nobody actually wants a balanced ARPG.
Oh, I
The
agree.
The people who
Exactly.
say they want it just don't understand how fucking boring that would be.
Oh,
Or
it's
they have a great
No,
misunderstanding
no.
of the term balance, or like at least a
Yeah.
different one than you.
You want to balance the RPG experience before it gets ever deleted. What I want you to do, Baylor, is level a shaman with Tempest Strike. Okay,
Pass.
if you do that for me, you'll
tried it.
understand what I mean about it. Like a, you know,
I try to
tried
pass.
it already. You tried it. That is what like playing fair in an RPG is like.
Yeah,
right there.
I've done nothing but play Primalist for like 2 weeks
Mhm.
now. Like, absolutely, like trying my best to like min max and know absolutely everything about the Thorn Totem build that I can possibly know for leveling. because
Beastmaster.
I love it. Nah, Shaman.
Yeah, well, I said it before you said Thorn Totem.
Yeah. Unfortunately, possibly the only Shaman build that's good, but it's a really good build.
Next, but we will see.
Perfect segue, Balor. We talked about pitfalls in the game. We talked about pitfalls with the item filter. What about meta pitfalls? How do you identify a good build? How do you tell a good build from a bad build?
That's such a hard thing right now because of the corruption system.
Yeah.
And
all
there's
right, you know what? Let me try.
bugs,
Let me try.
and go ahead. I'll let you do it.
So so I just ranted about this recently. So all the like the talking points are still in my mind. Maybe I can do better this time. You need flat damage, you need % increased damage, and you need more damage. And you can get flat damage from your weapons, from your gear, sometimes from affixes as well. Sometimes you can cheese it with like some other kind of like unique item or some interaction. % increased damage, you can build % increased damage in a number of ways, not too big deal. More damage tends to be the thing that you need to make sure you have enough of. And there's a handful of skills in the game that are old and they simply don't have enough more multipliers on them. And we make this joke about like just open up the skill tree, Control F, type in more, and then type in multiplicative and see if there's access to enough more multipliers in that skill tree where like you can pick up this one and this one and this one and they're not all contradictory and they all work together. And that's a good kind of way of figuring out, am I going to get enough more damage multipliers to go along with this build?
And to
like,
add to the
let me go one more. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So like sometimes you just don't have enough more multipliers. And a good example of this is something like Cinder Strike. Cinder Strike is it's like a fire combo skill that you get really early on. You can use it as bow or melee as a rogue character. And like new players like it, and they really do. But there's just nothing says the word more. There's one node that applies 1/3 of the time, and you can use it for utility. You can use there's meta things you can do with this. But if that's going to be your primary source of damage, there's just not enough more damage written on the skill. So those kinds of things, like those old skills, if it doesn't have more on it, it's really hard. You're going to be working harder than other builds are.
To make it in Path of Exile friendly terms, imagine if every single skill gem in the game had a random amount of links associated with it. Like, for instance, you had like Double Strike, and it had a 6 link worth of damage. And then you have Tornado Shot, which has like a 1 link. Or you have like Lightning Arrow that has a 3 link. Every single skill in Last Epoch, sadly, right now, is like that. It is completely random. There's like Earthquake, which would have the equivalent of like a 13 link currently, right?
It's true.
Like,
Well, it's not wrong, because there are archaic melee skills in Path of Exile that you require 2 additional links just to get Melee Splash and Ancestral Call to have the basic functionality for a skill that normally only takes 1 socket. So
And
you're
like
spot
Path of
on with the
Exile.
analogy.
And just like Path of Exile, like the newer skills in Last Epoch tend not to have this problem, and the older skills, some of them do.
Okay. Yeah. So the best way to tell whether a build is going to be good enough is to just ask a content creator who has been playing already?
Me. Yeah, that's the
honestly?
only. No, Dread. No, that's the only way. You
Yeah.
have to ask me. I only reply to subs, twitch.tv/PerryThePig. It's really the only solution. I'm sorry.
Honestly, the actual best way is just to play the skill, and if
like,
it ends up being shit, respec into something else.
and
It's
the
so
thing
great.
is, right? The thing is, like what I just mentioned isn't even like entirely true, because there are certain skills that have no links, technically no more damage modifiers, that are competitive, if not better, than other skills with a bunch of more damage modifiers. You have stuff like Frostclaw, where it doesn't have direct more damage modifiers for the most part, but it has things that super juice its damage, right?
Like mechanically change it in some way.
Yeah, that make it more superior to other skills, right? So, like for instance, recently with the Falconer reveal, there's a new skill called Net, right? And this Net has an interesting interaction with Puncture. Now, Puncture is like a melee stabby skill, right? And normally it's only used for utility. It doesn't have enough damage to do itself like anything at endgame, right? But when you take Net and you turn it into a trap, and you throw 3 net traps at once, right? And then all 3 of those net traps proc Puncture, then all of a sudden Puncture is pretty good, right? And that's like the problem is like, even with what we just stated, you can completely like flip it up. Like you don't have to have more damage to play it. Like for instance, one of my favorite builds that got murdered into the ground was Serpent Strike. Serpent Strike, the way it worked is it's a poison melee attack skill that like stabby, right? And the way you skill damage with it is it would gain a ridiculous, and I mean like absolutely ridiculous amount of increased damage for poisons based on how many times you've attacked recently. And you could build as much increased attack speed as humanly possible into your tree. You'd apply all these poisons. Those poisons would penetrate enemies. And as you got more poisons on the enemy, you do more damage. This isn't the case anymore. But still, that was before like all the nerfs and all that, right? And the skill had no more damage modifiers than its tree, but it dealt just as much damage as like all these other skills, right? Just because it had that interaction with attack speed and how it would like build onto itself, right? And yeah, and the problem is, sadly, there's no like right answer, but the best way, the first thing you should do is like what Perry said, look for more damage modifiers, right? That's the first thing you should do. That's the easiest way of going about it. If it does not have more damage modifiers, then what you do is you go bug Perry with it.
I thought another skill that's coming to mind is I played a terrible build somewhat recently. I played melee mana strike, and I was scaling bleed damage, and it was really good at applying bleeds. It applied 1,000 bleeds, no problem, really easily, but it had no more multipliers at all. So it was like death by 1,000 cuts. It was like the bare minimum of what I would call viable for a build.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you did something that had a little bit more support in it, you could, instead of scaling bleed damage, you could scale something called spark charges. So like mana strike applying spark charges instead of applying bleeds. Well, spark charges, they have support over here, and they got support with a unique item, and you can support them like this and support them like this. And like, it's not directly written on the skill tree, but it has more support from these other things. And like that's just something that you learn by messing around, by experimenting.
Yeah. And it just makes you have to be a little bit more 5-brain than normal, right? Like, for instance, recently I just played a build where it's literally Ignite Elemental Nova being proc from like Frostclaw, and like it's just absolute screen cancer. Let me find a link if I can find it. It like completely it eats bit rate and it just destroys.
It was a nice PowerPoint. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a very nice PowerPoint. I'll link it in chat here. And if for everyone who wants to look at it, wants to look at the 2 pixels. And that build does about what I would say the bare minimum of single target DPS. It does like 200 to 50K, 250 to 300K ticks on the dummy right now, which is like where I would say like about there, right? That's like where I'd say like after that, like if you go lower than that, you start having problems. And the reason why that build is okay to be like that, right, where it's like at the bare minimum of DPS, is because it deletes the entire screen. So you spend a little bit longer on a boss, but your monolith gameplay feels absolutely amazing. Just absolutely positively amazing. So there's a lot of builds that are like that, where like they don't have as much single target, but they're like this, where the build just is amazing, like on clear and stuff like that, right? And that's another nuance when it comes to it. But I would say like that's around there. Like, so to give a good like standing for new people is right now the average Oribus kill at like decent corruption at like 300, 400 corruption right now is around a minute, right? A minute. If you're faster than that, that's great. You're doing a bunch of damage. If you're a little bit slower to 2 minutes, you're like a little bit less than average. But if you can face tank that Oribus with that 2 minutes, then it's fine, because like you can just be lazy, like a cold out werebear or whatever, right? That's fine. And the other merit is killing T4 Jurla. The average is like 1 to 2 minutes. And unlike corruption, she doesn't change. So she's the same for everybody. So about like a 1 to 2 minute T4 Jurla kill is average. Like a 1 minute where you have to dodge and like dodge her abilities and use D more often, right? With her mechanics, or 2 minutes where you just sit there and you just wail on her and you just let her hit you and it's fine, right? Like that's like what I use myself for my merits, right? That's like for anyone coming into the game, that's like what I would use myself personally.
So,
go ahead.
There's one other thing we haven't touched on, which is something that I've been harking on about for a few weeks now because it's exciting to me, although I don't get to experience it, which is specifically for people who haven't played it before, who are getting like interested and like, yeah, I might actually play this on launch. I shouldn't say this because it means less fucking views for everybody, but this is actually, I think, the only opportunity I've ever seen in the ARPG sphere, but you can not look up a build and not know anything.
Oh yeah, it's great. I say
love it.
Yeah.
Like we don't get that opportunity very often. Most ARPGs, if you don't know what you're doing, or at least have some basic idea and some build in mind, you're going to have a terrible plan. This game, if you were to start on the day of launch, having never seen any specific content about it at all, you will still make a build that 99% of the time feels really good to you. Even if to like experienced content creators, they might look at it and go, that's a bit slow. You could fix this and go way faster, and you could do this and do it. You will have fun on day one with no knowledge at all. No build guide, nothing.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny because like Perry and I, we make a lot of the content for Ellie right now. Spoilers, it turns out. I've been making content for Ellie for like 4 years now, and I have a very large amount of videos, right? And I'm just like, literally, like whenever anyone is like, do I need a build guide to play this game? No. No. Like, even though like I make half of them or whatever, however much is it on the Ellie planner tool right now, it it coalesces all the builds that aren't on like Max or whatever, right? So if I look, I am currently 22% of every single upload on that website. Let that sink in. And even I'm just like, just play whatever, man. The respec system's so easy.
Yeah.
It's who cares? Just play whatever.
My
respect later. Go ahead,
My
Perry.
best YouTube video for Last Epoch was a set of starter builds for the Rune Master patch. I think it was like it was for multiplayer for 0.9. And like the first 30 seconds of that video is me saying, "Hey, welcome. You don't need a build guide. Here's 13 of them because I know you're going to ask for them anyways. You don't need any of these." Like that's
Yep. It's just,
That's just it.
the main reason I feel like that's such an important point is just because in the ARPG space in general, that's not an opportunity we get.
You
Like,
want
you
to
don't get to go into games blind and have a good time in ARPGs. That's not how it works. It is this time.
show the class your notepad, Perry?
Pardon?
You want to show the class your notepad for the next video you're going to make? The title?
My notepad document.
Yes. It's just like the first line, of course.
Sure. So I have a working title for my upcoming YouTube video, and it's called 14 Starter Builds for Beginners Who Demand Build Guides, even though new players don't need build guides. This isn't Path of Exile. I know I've been hurt before too, but it's okay now. I promise.
I'm not sure that will fit into the space of the
We'll
total.
see.
Okay.
It's
I
a
figured
working
out.
title. I'm gonna work on the
half of it
SEO.
in the description. I'll help them.
It definitely
That's
does have a
great.
lot of keywords in the title.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
It just has a lot of words in general.
You don't need any. I know I've been there before too. It's okay.
I've been there. I get it. I understand.
Though I would like to make the point that there was a time and a place for Path of Exile to go into it without a build guide and to have more fun than you have nowadays, right? It used to be a lot more straightforward than it is now.
Yeah.
It's just
I think
so
like
many
to
things.
reiterate what Baylor Mage said, like to me it's like this is a new player friendly game. Like the loot filter is new player friendly, build creations new player friendly. You open up the skills and you read some of them. If you hate reading, you're gonna hate it. You know, garbage genre. Don't play action RPGs if you hate reading. But if you like, open up the skills, read them, click on some stuff, try to find some synergy, something that you can build around, you're gonna have fun even with no build guide, and that's so important to me.
Well, what are you going to play on launch?
Man, all right, let me tell you what I miss most about Path of Exile. All right, what I miss about Path of Exile, like the 3-month, like the cyclical the releases,
Is telling people to wait for patch notes.
No. I loved being indecisive. I loved having like 4 ideas and like the butterflies you get in your belly. And like, I don't know what to pick. It's like, am I making the wrong choice? Catmaster's playing this. Dread's playing this. What should I do?
I currently on the fence.
I
as well,
really
by the
miss
way.
being indecisive. And like currently, I think I'm going to play Warlock. I think I'm going to play something like that. But now we saw the Healing Hand skill tree, and the Healing Hand skill tree
That looks so good.
really good.
I'm a Gathering Storm lover.
We got the Gathering Storm skill tree, and that looks really good. And all of a sudden, I don't really know what to do anymore. So I don't know. I love feeling like that. It's a really good thing for me.
Yeah.
Put all the ones you're interested on a wheel and just spin it 2 minutes before launch and be like, all right, that's the one.
Well, no, and then if you feel bad about what shows up, just do the other thing instead. It's like, listen, so sometimes I ask my wife for input. Not all the time, just sometimes. I don't want to, but I asked her for input. I was like, hey, should I play a Falconer or should I play a Warlock on the 1.0 launch of Last Epoch? And she's like, you know what? You should play a bird. And I was like, I was kind of leaning toward a Warlock already. Thanks for making it easy. I'll play a Warlock. So like I've got this bad habit. I don't know if it's a good habit or a bad habit, but I've got this habit of like kind of doing the exact opposites of what she recommends. So she's like, you should play Falconer. I was like, well, that basically locks it in. I'll play Warlock.
I'll have my wife come over and I'll have her like look at what I'm playing. I'm like, do you like this? And
Is it pretty? Do you like pretty cool explosions?
Like for instance, my favorite moment from that was I was playing PoE and I was playing Cock Ice Nova with like the frost bolts, right? She was like, "Oh my god, look at the bubbles! It's the bubble build!" And I just died.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a PoE player, I don't have a wife. My wife left me.
Who is he kidding? Who knows? All right.
What did I want to say? I had to make that joke, but it sadly became reality for some people. Anyway, you did give me a non-answer. You didn't tell me what you were going to play, right?
Well, that's the problem.
It
It's
doesn't
like
know.
he's going to level as a warlock, right? That's the
I
beautiful
think
thing. He could play a warlock.
maybe-
He can play any warlock build. It doesn't matter, right? Mastery matters way more.
Fair enough.
I think like maybe warlock. Maybe I'll play melee vengeance for all the damage reduction that vengeance gives to you, and then I'll proc healing hands and I'll scale spell damage, and I'll also proc like abyssal echoes, and I'll use that for like single target.
Well, you do paladin flame burst because the echoes.
Paladin flame, yes, and then you have the retaliation melee attacks that help proc flame burst.
The echoes, if I'm not mistaken, they're not going to work with healing hands. Like when it says when you use it, they will not trigger more healing hands. So
you gotta go paladin. All right.
Yeah. So like, you know what? I'm fine with that because Void Knights have enough going for them.
Void Knights are a lot of fun. And so then we have new unique items we don't know about yet, and unique items tend to have a lot of build round possibilities. So it looks like what's the guy's name? David Harbour, is that it? David Harbour, the actor of Stranger Things, the guy who played the sheriff.
Oh, the guy who gets his own unique item.
Yeah. He's like adding. He plays Last Epoch, and he wants to add a unique item in the game. So he's gonna showcase his thing tomorrow, and maybe that's the new cool thing. Maybe I'll play that. I don't know.
Wait, I need to show that tweet quickly.
It's very funny.
Balor, what build are you playing tomorrow on Wednesday?
Or Totem.
Almost certainly Thorn Totems, since I put so much work into it.
Yes.
Also, there were like 400 Thorn Totem build guides around, and I went and looked at all of them, and there's variations in all of them. And then after playing the entire build like 17 times in a row, I'm doing different shit.
Guess what?
And I like my way more.
Guess who uploaded a Thorn Totem guide today? Guess.
I have no idea.
Scissorin did, or not?
It's too early for guides. It's not 1.0.
There's no patch notes yet. What if it changes?
There's no patches.
Right?
I mean, what I've been doing, I've just been playing the game and I've been fucking around, and then like I'll just make an update for everything. I'll just go down the list of videos. I'll be like, defunct, 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 defunct. Oh, they left Tempest Strike alive. Okay, defunct, 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 or whatever it ends up being. That day will be busy for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be it. If you guys think that's enough for the podcast.
Don't you want to ask me what build I'm playing?
Hey, Campmaster, what are you playing for 1.0?
You haven't even tried anything.
I'm probably gonna do that Paladin Hammer Throw again, like the Smite cast on Hammer
the same
Throw.
build you've already played? A classic.
It is good.
By the way, if you go
Classic.
MG,
You want to have a solid league starter to set up your cycle.
It's true.
So we were talking about this MG. The one biggest thing that will make MG good is idols, because idols are a pain in the ass, and like those are the things that are hard to target farm. But in MG, you just like shell a little bit of gold, right? And like, bam, I got my smite idols, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like one thing that MG is actually going to be really fucking good at. Is that it's like I need specific idols to play my build.
Idols are kind of a pain to farm. There's no good way of target farming them.
But like your random Joe Schmo who's playing like Rude Master for the 50th time, he'll drop a smite item like, what is this? And list it for like 5 gold. Yeah.
All right, fair. Good. Then, yeah, before I forget it, thank you definitely both for coming on. That was very insightful, and we couldn't have done such a good pre-launch episode without your expertise on this game. And when is your next podcast? You're going to do a podcast after patch notes, right?
So I was thinking about that. My plan, Perry, I don't know how you feel about that, but we're going to introduce a casual episode of Epic Epoch where what we're going to do is we're going to hop on Discord, and it's just going to be the unofficial episode where we just talk while we're playing, I think, because we're going to be too busy.
So last time we had a big launch of some sort. It was like on a Thursday or something, and then we didn't do the podcast on Friday because we wanted to have more time to actually play. You want to do a podcast on Friday?
Yeah, we can do a podcast. Like I said, we can just like do like a shit talk episode, like a kind of like a casual episode. We can call it the casual episode.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah, we can talk about all the new
We'll
stuff
talk,
that
we'll
we're
talk.
gushing
I'll have my people talk to your people.
about.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
If you're in chat right now, if you've been listening to this episode or watching, and you didn't know these guys before, then you definitely want to follow them on the social media and check out the podcast so you can listen to more Last Epoch goodness. There's also a specific episode about the new Falconer. There's a specific episode where you talked like 1.5 hours about the new Warlock, right? Like both topics that we didn't have time to go into today on the stream. But if you guys want to hear more with two of the same voices about this beautiful game and learn more, then there's a plethora of content on the Epic Epoch YouTube channel. Yeah, and if you missed anything at all, then this is obviously uploaded in full. You can rewind it as you watch it on YouTube. That's a thing. But I also re-uploaded to our dedicated new YouTube channel for FATED. And the video version is to be found on Spotify, as well as an audio version on most, if not all, relevant streaming platforms, podcast platforms. Does anyone want to add anything before we round things off? Ballard looked eager to say something.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good.
Buff acid flask. All right, there you go.
All right, guys, don't drink the acid flask. Make sure that you pick a good build guide, even though you don't need one. Learn how to adjust your item filter, because that is something that can and should be done in Last Epoch. And we also got a new episode. That's what I wanted to say. See, I knew I can't finish the episode before I give the shout out to the next planned episode, which is going to be at the same time, just in a week from now, Saturday night. We are going to be joined by some other LE lovers, and we're going to talk all about the first couple of days of the new LE cycle, the full release. And yeah, with that said, it's been a blast. Thank you guys again for coming. And if you've been supporting financially, then you're going to be on the end screen. Thanks, guys. I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash.